flames, awaken the power held inside of me, harness resilience through the pain. I'm a warrior.
Self-bio, sleep on checkmate, are you kidding? Marco to the rescue, the blade comes out and he shuts it all down in one fell swoop. Absolutely stomping. Oh, what is that? I haven't even gotten to the bridge. Backbone!
Warrior, I'm a hurricane like Gloria. I won't fail my times now. Rise of glory won't back down. I take the pain and I let it out. On the mountaintop, shout it out. Break away, let me demonstrate my mentality. Activate. Oh,
Rampage through the side room. Everybody, massive for Bernard. Catches everybody else.
I'm a warrior.
Gonna look to make it happen, and there it is. Proper. Cannot be stopped.
On the mountaintop, shout it out. Break away, let me demonstrate my mentality. Activate.
Welcome to the Overwatch League. The qualifiers are done. The wait is over. The Summer Showdown tournament is finally going to begin. And you know what? Puckett isn't the only new face on the Summer Showdown broadcast. We also have the Archbishop of NA Contenders here in York as well. Give us your sermon. I've been waiting. Come on.
Yeah, it's been some time since I've seen some APAC matches. Started my career a little bit, getting started in Korea and China and everything. And since then, I've been invested in NA, sure, but Archbishop maybe overselling it. I won't take credit that much.
Yeah, I'll let you move. You can move diagonally. That's good. I mean, that's a lot of different positioning you go. All four directions diagonally. So we'll see how things move on forward today as we have our first round in the double elimination bracket here. Guangzhou Charge, Shanghai Dragons, Seoul Dynasty, Philadelphia Fusion, our top four from the Eastern Division now finally got to battle out for our third title of the year so far.
Yeah, this should be awesome to see because we do seem to have we have some setup already. Shanghai Dragons feels like the top squad, obviously #1 seed coming in, but they only dropped a single map. They're going to be taking on the Guangzhou Charge here in our first match, but that second match there, I think could be really entertaining. Seoul Dynasty, Fusion, there's a lot of questions with regards to where those teams actually fall right now after Week 18.
And, it's getting competitive out here as well because Shanghai Dragons and Dynasty, they did play each other. There was a 3-0, but you kind of feel that Dynasty had more to show, they had more to give. And both Dragons and Dynasty, they've had kind of that feeling of having more to show since we've seen them in the mid-season Madness tournament where, truth be told, they probably did, underperform a little bit. They didn't quite perform up to expectations that we really set out for them. But also, sort of new to the tournament stage is the Guangzhou Charge, who they haven't been in a tournament since the 2020 season. That was Season 3, it's 2 years ago. The only surviving member of that squad is Kroll, who actually remembers winning the Summer Showdown. So he's actually won the tournament before. Summer Showdown comes back again. Charge didn't do so great last year. They didn't do so great in the first two stages of this year either, Heroics, but now I think they're making a bit of a comeback.
Yeah, it is interesting that the Summer Showdown that they participated in back then was actually their best performance that this team has ever had. And now here they are with another opportunity against, realistically the best team. Certainly, I think the favorite. But you look across this team and I start to see some things that I like personally. Coming from contenders, I love these kind of rebound stories. I like these stories of development as well. And one that I really like, especially with regards to rebound, is Xerneas. Seeing Xerneas come back over and I think fly under the radar as a truly productive force for this squad. I think it certainly seems like a standout to me.
Yeah, I think in the previous matchup versus the Chengdu Hunters, right, there was a lot of comparison there because you have a lot of members of the ex-Chengdu Hunters squad of last year, that being Xerneas, Farway, and Jimmy, kind of outperforming the counterparts on the other team. And, of those, we always kind of felt like, or at least in my opinion, Xerneas was a stronger player compared to Nisha. He got a lot more game time compared to Nisha last year. But he was kind of cut from the roster for other reasons, right? And now he's had to make a run through contenders. He joined Ultra Prime Academy, which is the academy team of the Guangzhou Charge. He's made it back in the Overwatch League, and he's starting to look like one of those top main supports again, or at least on the trajectory to becoming, that sort of player that he was regarded for last year. So look at their opponents, though. This Guangzhou Charge have quite the mountain to climb today. Certainly not an easy task to go up against the Shanghai Dragons at the best of times, and reigning champions from 2021, but you already knew that. This team has had all of the wins under their belt that they needed so far in this qualification stage. 6-0, haven't dropped a single series. They only dropped, by the way, one map, and that was to the Philly Fusion. They actually nearly had a flawless stage.
Yeah, I mean, them and Seoul, and for some reason, Fusion just loves to play spoil to those golden stages. But yeah, this is a team, third place finish in kickoff clash. I mean, in isolation, that feels like a good result, but it's the Shanghai Dragons. And then you look at midseason madness, and they had that exit when they did, and it's like, okay, they did do pretty well, but again, it's the Shanghai Dragons. We are expecting more, and it finally feels like now, again, with that 18-1 map score, not dropping a single set throughout the entirety of the qualifiers, it feels like the Dragons are back to being the Dragons.
Yeah, absolutely. I kind of felt like that was happening in the previous stages as well. Like kickoff clash, they started slowly, but then sort of got into it. By the time we got to the tournament, they looked very strong off the back of, most importantly, Who Are You, which is, again, I think the key player, the spearhead of this entire team currently in this tournament as well. Mid-season Madness looked a little bit shaky, had some good hopes going into the actual tournament, but a lot of that wasn't realized. And I think with the Shanghai Dragons as well, they sort of had that realization. They got the wake-up call from their exit in the mid-season Madness tournament, and I think they wanted to do better. They knew they could do better. It's been a bit of an interesting year for the Dragons, given that they haven't looked as dominant as their 2021 selves, but maybe now in Summer Showdown, like this has been the closest that we've seen to 2021 Dragons.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting to see the kind of scale between both of these two teams, right? Where we know the height of Shanghai Dragons, we know what they're capable of. Obviously, the absolute pinnacle of what we expect to see in this region. But on the other side, and of course, they're kind of going through their growth stages. But on the other side, Charge very much the same. And I think this is a question of ceilings here. And I think we'll probably say that a lot about Charge going through this tournament bracket. Because look, I mean, Charge, they didn't start too hot, as you mentioned earlier on, that it's really about a rebound for them wholesale. And I think while we compare them to a team like Dragons, do they have that kind of height in them? I'm not sure, but potentially down the line, how do they scale against some of these other squads? Obviously, it starts here. If they could do well here and make a statement, then, I mean, all's well will be well, right, for the Charge? Yeah. Because if you could do it against what seems like the best team, then it's certainly smooth sailing and going forward.
And they weren't even, by the way, the lowest seed coming into this tournament. I believe they were seed 3, right? They had a 4-2 record. Fusion came with 2-4. They are the 4th seed. Shanghai being the 1st seed. They had choice, they had opponent selection, which is I guess the prime benefit of being the 1st seed, and they chose the Charge over the Fusion. I think that speaks volumes in terms of what their preference is. They being the Shanghai Dragons here, they would rather play the Charge at 4-2 than the Philly Fusion at 2-4. I think maybe that's about Fusion kind of having their own upswing towards the end of the qualifier here, and Fusion has been a bit of a bogey team for Shanghai in the past, especially this year. Shanghai probably feels a lot more comfortable going up against the Guangzhou Charge. I mean, you look at their match history, they are currently on a 5-match win history streak versus the Charge, which goes all the way back to the last time that Charge actually beat the Dragons. And here's a fun fact to you, people will remember this one. It was the Summer Showdown Finals in 2020, 4-2. That was when Guangzhou Charge won their first and so far only title, and I'm sure that many Guangzhou players, fans, and everybody attached to Guangzhou fondly remembers that tournament and that time. And ever since then, looking to recreate that magic. And, well, this has been the closest so far in 2 years that they've had to do that. But that was the last time that they actually beat the Dragons, all the way back in 2020 Summer Showdown Finals.
Yeah, and I mean, just to reiterate as well, we have to also bring up the fact again that right after that, that was their last actual tournament showing realistically that they've had since then. So, I mean, it has been some time for Charge, but they are on an upswing, and a lot of that, I think, can be comprised of the fact that they have had this injection of newer talent. It seems like things are going well, and again, it's just a question of where their ceiling is at. Are they able to build up quickly enough off of some of their successes in previous weeks in the kind of latter half of the qualifier stage to be able to contend with a team that has been profoundly strong? I think surprisingly to a degree, but also unsurprising in the fact that it is, again, the Shanghai Dragons, and we kind of expect this from them. But we haven't seen that, and now they're back in stride. But Charge, I think, moving into this series, obviously with the meta as it is, and I think we're going to have a lot of discussions during the map about what this meta looks like and the strengths of both of these teams, their identities as well. I think establishing that early on is going to be key for them, because Dragons have certainly done that, especially when you look at their roster, right? Because back in midseason madness, there was a lot of movement with regards to their roster. Now it feels like they're locked in, both at the roster level and at the compositional level and strategy level, and that's going to be hard to contend with.
Yeah, both teams are fairly locked in as far as the rosters goes. We'll be heading to match very shortly, but for now, as we sort of wait for map 1 to begin and also take a look at our map set as well. And we're also into the sort of stage where teams can pick and choose maps after they do lose them. It's been 3-0, 3-0 the last 2 games that Dragons have had against the Guangzhou Charge, not a single map given away. There was a more contentious game at the start of the year that was in Kickoff Clash regular season. That was week 4. Charge got 2 maps off of the Dragons, so there had been at least a little bit more back and forth even this year, even with the prior Charge roster before they're rebuilding coming into this particular tournament. So there may be a little bit of hope there. And you talk about ceilings, right? That's going to be a bit of a topic for us in terms of how far can the Charge go, because we've seen some of these other teams at their peaks. We know how good they have been, how good they are. With the Charge, I feel like there's still a little bit more to show. They did go down, as mentioned, 0-3 versus Dragons this qualifier stage as well, with Jimmy, with Xerneas, but maybe they've improved since then. Maybe there's a little bit more there because they started to get a lot more comfortable towards the end of the qualification stage. That's when they got some of their better wins over their Joe compatriots in Hangzhou as well, which was a very important game for them. And 4-2, I mean, that's easily been their best record for some time. So, the question will be, what is the ceiling of Charge, and what even is a marker of success here? Obviously, beating Dragons would be nice, but if they even take maps off Dragons, does that mean success?
Yeah, I mean, it certainly feels like that has to be the case, because not many teams have really done it. Again, really only Fusion have done it, because they have some weird knack at just playing spoil. I'm not sure what it is about the Fusion, and I think that's probably a key to why
they like
Dragons
to give their fan
base
hope.
Yeah, exactly. It's all about the hopium. But look, I mean, Dragons, they certainly they made a decision here. They went for Guangzhou. I think a lot of that comes into the fact that as much as there is an unknown quantity about Guangzhou Charge, there's also the fact that they are somewhat of a known entity. You know what you're getting there. Obviously, the height, the ceiling, that's the major question and concern that I think we're going to be looking at. But throughout, I think certainly Guangzhou makes sense to Shanghai, and I'm looking to see Shanghai really settle in here.
Oasis first up for the map series here, chosen by the Shanghai Dragons as the highest seed, and the following maps will be chosen by the loser. I don't know if there's going to be any particular map preferences. I mean, Paraíso is obviously in the pool, and some teams have preferred that, especially the teams that will enjoy playing the Dorado. But here we go. Finally, we are beginning the game, our first official match. A map starting in the Summer Showdown tournament. Again, the qualifiers are over. The tournament begins. It is going to be city center here. Everyone playing exactly what you would expect. Don't get baited by the Who Are You echo. It's going to be standard Joes.
Yeah, definitely going to be exactly what we're going to see. Probably through and through. There might be a couple of little changes that we do see, probably more at the DPS level than if anything at all, but already out of the gates, look to see where these shout cooldowns get used. That's the primary indicator of who's going to have tempo control in these fights.
And also you have to look at the early damage being done there as well, specifically onto Krong. So Xerneas getting low. Jimmy copying a bit of heat. You talk about early shout usage. One's already come through from the Charge, and immediately a trade. Jimmy for easy Yaki. It's still a 4 versus 4 scenario, but they're healing a little bit better on the Charge. Off the back of that choice, A1 will execute Who Are You, and that typically will be enough. I mean, Who Are You down is a pretty big deal. Lip's still alive, though, can be a bit of an issue. Saved by the shout there. Choice 1, I believe, went down to something like 1 HP. Really, really close call. Fight is still not yet over. The cap is open. No one really has an advantage.
Looks like Shanghai Dragons looking for that early contest, but Guangzhou Charge not going to let this one go. You can see Krong working that angle, trying to get a flank open for his team while Lip is getting pressed.
Ooh, 4 HP, and it gets the edge on Choi. That should be the start now of Dragons walking forward. Further executions. Who Are You on towards Jimmy, and the fight is all but done. Lip living on 4 HP was everything in there. I mean, if Lip dies and Choi gets a kill instead, that could have been a very different fight. Dragons, first one's capping.
Yeah, I definitely think for the Dragons, it's kind of was bookended by Lip's performance there, right? Like, equalizing that opening pick that Lip got initially with the headshot from the railgun, then also just finding that kill on the choice of 1, I think completely shut that fight down. So obviously, I respect to Lip for getting the job done for his team, because otherwise that could have gone horribly awry for a team that is looking to dominate, I think, this series.
And they're going to be dominating, at least in terms of ult charge here. Who are you into Jimmy? But Lip's already popped the overclock. I mean, this fight should all be done in dust. Xerneas not even close enough to pop a sound barrier. Don't think he would have done that anyway, given already losing players on mark. But there's a bit of a canyon of a damage difference between Lip and Jimmy so far. Also a life difference, given that Lip is one of 3 players on the Dragons that haven't actually died yet. There's Lip, Void, and Legion on 0 deaths. Jimmy's died 3 times. He's been a bit of a target. And Lip is exceeding damage above Jimmy by about 1.9k.
And it's interesting, too, that Jimmy is the target. You don't often see Sojourns being the primary go-to target, but Jimmy's playing a little bit aggressively here, and he might be caught again.
There's double sound barriers coming on through, but Choice of One's blade will catch Lip before Chigon can save it, so that is going to be the timing that will make a bit of a difference here. 5 versus 4. We talked about Lip. He was deathless for this stage in terms of being alive in this map, and that will finally go down. A later rally from Izayaki being popped to match Faraway, but another player down. I believe Faraway might have even got the boot kill to Legion. So it's a 5-3. Continuing on always, even with Dragons respawn. I mean, Lip's back in the fight, but Ruoyu's dead instantly. Krong cleaning up the rest of the members. There should be the foot coming on through very shortly. Dragons might exceed 90, but they will lose the fight.
Shanghai Dragons falling to the wayside, but the good news here for the Dragons is that they made that sustain happen for so long. I mean, obviously a kind of later rally from Izayaki, certainly not enough to keep Lip upright, but Dragons, they certainly feel good about what they got there. They got the score up to 95%. Now it's all about getting into that building stage. Certainly you don't want to have picks like that go out. You're giving away economy to the enemy. Charge, it's very much a different story for them. While they're obviously trying to prevent Dragons from turning things, they also have to make sure that they remain efficient in their economy here more than anything, on top of the timings with the shouts and trying not to overextend, because you know Lip can find ahead.
I don't know if this will be overextension or not, but it will be aggression being shown by the Charge. Dragons don't actually really want to fire this. Void being hit by the Rampage isn't going to respond with his own. Obviously, no support ultimates on board for either team here. Is going to be at least one punish out from Izayaki. But this is the dangerous part for Charge. We talked about it. Could it be overextension? Now it starts to really look like it. Jimmy wanting to save the raid, but he's not on healing. He's on below half HP, and this is going to be a cleanup. It's 2 ultimates used by the Charge, and Dragons walk away with the fight win, and they're at 95%. So once they flip this one, Charge to come back immediately. Krong's on a ball.
I started to wonder here if Choice of One can even touch, and in fact, he goes down, so now they don't even have the Genji, they don't have the touch along with it, and 150 there for the Dragons, getting an early lead. I think partially as expected, but Charge looked good there. There were some great moments, obviously caught overextended just a little bit towards the spawn, trying to get a little bit more value than they really deserved to get at certain stages, and Dragons, they're just not a team that's going to let that fly.
Yeah, I mean, it's not uncommon that we see spawn camps happen. I think maybe it's a little bit rare in Oasis. I don't know if it happens a little bit more often in AK Contenders from what you've seen, but it's very risky on some maps and on some portions to go for that kind of play. Krong diving in with the team, they at least got the 1 kill, but they failed to get anything afterwards. Dragons could just go back into spawn, get their health back in, re-aggress, get a couple of punishes, and just entirely turn that. So for Charge, they were looking for a lot there, and they didn't get too much done.
Loving the aggression still, though, with Charge. I mean, you can see Choice of One really taking some of that forward position away, getting space for his team, allowing them to take up the high ground. That's good for Charge. That means they are still confident in this matchup, which is huge for them.
Chigon now going to be the first target, so we had Dragons kind of losing a member early on City Center. That will happen again, but this time Charge do not lose any further members of their own, which likely will end up in a pretty clean sweep of kills. Krong staying alive, very important for the Guangzhou Charge. Struggling to maybe get further than a couple kills here, but they'll at least get the cap. That's the important thing for the Charge. They might not get the full cleanup, but they will start with a percentage.
Yeah, establishing yourself early on after the neutral fight is huge. I think a lot of that really kind of keys into what we were talking about already with Choice of One, getting a lot of forward position taken away from the Dragons. They get stuck into these spots where they can get AoE pressured down. That's where the carnage really comes alive as well for players like Krong.
Well, Void's on a bit of HP deficit at the moment compared to his counterpart, in particular. Xerneas looking for a plentiful number of boots, who are you just flying back on. Shanghai Dragons, for the most part, have been allowed to freely rotate onto high ground. What can they do with that? A little bit of damage the Choice of One has been healed. Look at ults now. Choi, importantly, has a blade coming online. It might just be a beaten blade engage. DJ God has the Sound Barrier nearly Ajax. Someone has to be very careful, very low HP. Responded to by Xerneas. No further ultimates from the Dragons just because they got nothing to use. Izayaki likely to go down here as well. Choi with 2 in the fight, and the Dragons just have to give it up. The timings were just slightly off. Lip was just slightly off from the overclock. Who are you? 25 away from the blade. Izayaki, I think, just percentage points away from the rally, and the slight ultimate difference from the charge will be enough.
I think at least for the Dragons here, obviously staring down the barrel of 60% for the charge, you start to wonder, okay, was there at least a silver lining there? And I think there was, and the fact that Xerneas did pop the Sound Barrier just to help bolster the blade. Now, that's one defensive utility that you don't have to worry about moving forward, at least before you have the opportunity to get a flip.
Yeah, it was feeling like a big blade engage for me, as well as just thinking that you're looking at how much it was going to cost the charge to be able to secure that one, but they have 80%. Let them pop the overclock, but who are you that suddenly get the damage done? He's got 2 on his own, call it 3, as Shanghai Dragons could even pull a blade if they want to, but everyone's dead, so no need for it. 3 out of the 5 kills there. The overclock didn't end up being a factor. It doesn't need to be. Allows the Shanghai Dragons to walk on forward, and forward they go. 90% for the charge, though, is a very strong lead.
I think, though, Dragons have the capacity to turn this around, though, right? Because you have the blade, there's a rally there for far away, and you have to try to layer both the rally and the shout, probably just to stay alive. When you talk about considering, okay, what kind of lethality can you get out of a blade? Typically not much in this meta, but it's who are you? I think they're going to need both of those resources to get through this offensive pressure that they're about to see.
And I'm also looking at the tanks here as well, because we're getting towards Rampage territory. And that obviously comes in a little bit late on a control map, and for Void it might not come at all in this fight. Jimmy's just deleted him. Who Are You has a difficult choice to make, and he will choose to still go for the blade. He's going to try and make the hero play happen, but it's just shut down. I don't know if that was the correct call from Who Are You. It's like basically 2v5. Jimmy pulls an overclock. It's a lot of damage, and Shanghai Dragons now left wanting. 5% left to go for the touch and charge. In position to equalize here on Oasis map number 1. A touch from the Dragons, rather, will come through in time. And they keep it going, though, barely. The Dragon is being really sneaky about it. There is still a Rampage. The Dragon's finally taken down by Jimmy. And is there more? Is there more from the Shanghai Dragons in the extremities of the spikes? Jimmy for the Dragon so far. Blade deleting Who Are You. Rampage coming through both sides. Krong and Choi being hit big time. So we talk about the trade of the Rampage. The Dragons have actually coming through despite losing Who Are You.
One of the big things there, too, is Krong was backed out of the fight. So Shanghai Dragons had their Junker Queen, whereas Charge did not. Looks like this is going to be a flip here for the Dragons. They're going to get back into the swing of things, and they've at least to a degree reset the economy, which is important for them because they have still a mountain to climb in some of this score percentage to be able to find a way through and maybe still get a 2-0. And I think one of the big things here is utilization of these support ults. We see some of that layering already happening in this series between those resources. Shanghai Dragons have to be efficient more than anything.
That looked like it was signed, sealed, and delivered for the Guangzhou Charge to take us to a decider University. We might still yet go to University. We'll take a lot more effort now, and despite Guangzhou Charge starting well in that fight, couldn't quite continue and convert on the further members. At once more choice of one will get Who Are You down. It's the first target of the Shanghai Dragons. Sound Barrier comes through regardless. It is the final fight. Both teams equalize in that regard. Izayaki with the extra rally far away doesn't quite have it yet. Can that be enough? Left onto overclock as well. Jimmy's already dead. This is now going to be equalization. Who Are You coming back? Krog with 2. A jagged blade finds both. How is that even happening? Guangzhou Charge. 4 versus 3, low HP on the support line, and Dragons have only got Who Are You left, so we talk about equalizing, go to University, Charge, look like they'll make that happen.
Nice little cherry on top as well for Krog. 3 jagged blade kills there in a single fight, and you can see there another pick onto Lip just at the very end. Obviously doesn't mean much, but a lot of the picks that we're seeing from Charge have meant so much more than that. I mean, Charge consistently finding some of these opening picks against the Dragons, a team that generally seems very composed in some of these pre-fights, some of these rotational plays, even in neutral engagements as well. Charge have found a way to catch Dragons out, which is something that we don't say really often.
My goodness. Really making this one competitive today, as let's take a look at Krong. This could be the double jacket blade kill coming through. It just goes through both. I mean, Collat with the blade, take those. 2 nice low players right lined up for you. A third one, as you sort of mentioned. Yeah, I mean, that's the kind of heroics you want to see out of Krong, but also choice of one taking Who Are You down right off the rip. But Who Are You, I think, did twice in a row at the beginning of 2 fights. Really hurts the Dragons' chances of making a deep run in that particular fight. I mean, given that, they still really made it competitive. Dragons looking pretty hot for a while when Lip pulled the overclock, and now maybe one of these two Genjis, it's going to be Choi on UOU again.
Can't be having that happening there. Obviously, a lot of just kind of latent pressure being applied to both Genjis, but it's Shanghai Dragons firing back now. After losing their Genji, they go ahead and take away the Junker Queen. That's an advantage.
Will certainly be an advantage for now. Ixiaki falling, though, kind of equalize in terms of pure player numbers. Both Vegeta's will fall. Choi has just been, you know, he's been a part of every single one of these kills. It's been him on the kill feed. Final blows coming on in. Still point is open. No one's really taking advantage of that just yet. Charge, first one's on said point. 5v5 to come through, so a lot of early skirmishing in terms of players down. Charge at the cap, but all players have arrived.
Shanghai Dragons really would like to have gotten a little bit more value out of that Krong pick, find the kills onto Jemmy and Choi, extend this a little bit out so that he can get control, but instead Charge somehow find a way back, and you can see the flank coming in from Void, trying to work that off angle.
That's a big hit. That's going to be the Shanghai Dragons, you know, popping the early ultimates. You look at the support line of the Charge, they don't quite have anything to match with just yet. It's the extra tempo beat from Lee Jae-gon. Void walking forward with full confidence, major carnage swing. And despite Choi having an advantage on the blade, no opportunity to use that in that last fight.
I think Charge have certainly relied a little bit on Choi getting some of those first picks, deleting Who Are You from the equation entirely, taking him out. And the blades have also been very consistently lethal in a meta where there's so many defensive utilities to prevent that lethality, but Charge still find a will, still find a way. It's all about baiting some of these cooldowns out. They've already got the sound barrier. He could get through a rally for sure.
And now Choi can come on through. Ixiaki, if he dies here, it will be over. 2 supports down. Dragons, no responses here. Who Are You not even going to pull through the hero blade this time around? A 5-0 wipe for the Charge, and off the blade alone as well. I mean, it was 2 support ultimates shelved away for a rainy day, and they even got the extra rally from Ixiaki.
Yeah, that's probably the most important aspect, is that now they're way ahead in economy, or at least for now, to be able to continue this progression that they have. All they have to worry about at this stage is making sure that they don't get picked out by Who Are You or Lip.
Now this is Charge once again going close to Dragon Spawn. Not quite there though, and even though they're not quite there, Choi, maybe he was a little bit too far forward. Lip gets the punish again here. A lot more ultimates being thrown in as Void. 3-man Rampage, I mean, it's looking good, but still waiting to get a couple more picks in here. It's taking a long time. This is where the double support ultimates of the Charge really come into factor. Who Are You? Now that the fleet and the rally have dissipated, just looking for the frags. They aren't quite getting it done so far. Now we get far way down. Krong somehow falls off the map, and it's still fairly even. You'd like to have seen an opportunity for Krong to use that Rampage. Not going to be the case. Shanghai Dragons eventually will come out ahead. You notice that Choi also came back on the Tracer, but it doesn't really help. Shanghai Dragons, they get the initial punish onto Choi, and they continue the fight. It takes a while, but they get the win.
I think the probably most pivotal part of that fight is the fact that Krong just fell off the side of the map. Obviously, yeah, Rampage would be huge, but also just the presence of a Junker Queen when you have that chaotic breakdown in the fight where you are going to be going, you know, 3v3, 4v3, 3v4, whatever it may be. You need the Junker Queen to be that pillar, and they're also going to need Lee Jae-gon on the other side. Both Lucio's already dead.
Okay, well, Lip is going to have to save the day now. They've actually done a ton of damage. Who Are You still getting it done despite losing Lee Jae-gon? Who Are You up for a 5k? The ace available now. Stolen by Lip, but they'll get the fight when that's the important thing for the Shanghai Dragons. What was that coming through? As Charge popped in the extra Rampage, they got the opening pick as well. It looked like they have everything going for them. Who Are You just says no.
Look at the timing of this too, both support ults. So the exact position that Charge were in earlier, now Dragons are in, but they're much higher on the score line there, 80%. So they can extend this fight out where Charge have to kind of build, have to be careful here. And I think Dragons, if I was them, I would play this aggressively. As soon as Charge comes in, make that pivot, make that rotation with both of your support ults, and just cancel this one out.
Well, one of them's gone. That's one support ultimate off the table. Ixiaki should be pressured now. His final fight territory, so Dragons going to do so much to hold on before the rally must be popped, and there it is. Still some low HP on Charge, so Dragons, they get Choi down. Krong survived through it. Should be now with the overclock. Blocking for targets. He did actually connect to the Void, but Void survives on 1 HP. That is critical for the Dragon's success, because now Lee Jae-gon comes in with the sound barrier. It's looking healthy for the Dragons. Charge falling by the wayside. So many players, though, so many players down. Who Are You pulls the blade, and that will be the blade that sends the Charge down on the first map. Dragons lock it up. They do lose that Gardens, but they will secure Oasis.
I mean, come on. Easily one of the most dominant teams coming into this tournament, especially in clutch moments. You look back to their last series that they had and really defined by clutch moments, I think, predominantly. And you look now at what we're seeing here, and Guangzhou Charge had some pleasantly surprising moments, I think. Choi Sawan had, honestly, some of the best Genji play that I've personally seen. Obviously, you know, coming into this, I had my expectations between Who Are You and Choi, and it feels like Choi is doing a lot for the Charge, really establishing presence, really making sure that they're taking space away from the Dragons, putting them in uncomfortable positions, and I think a lot of that comes from the head of the spear, and I think in a lot of ways, that's Choi.
Yeah, despite Krong being the longest serving member on the Charge, it does feel like Choi Si-hwan has been the franchise player leading the squad for quite some time now over the course of 2 years in Charge. They made Oasis competitive, couldn't quite get the win. It will be their map choice coming up next, but we are going to take a quick break. When we come back, map number 2 of our opening series, the Summer Showdown Tournament, will be here. An intense first showing here from Guangzhou Charge and Shanghai Dragons in our opening match of the Summer Showdown tournament, as that was a lot closer than we probably expected here, Heroix, given that Oasis went to all 3 rounds and not a single 100-0 found within any of those. I think we had 80+% on both teams for almost every single round, and even on the first one, Charge got 50, so Charge are doing probably a lot better than people gave them credit for.
Yeah, I think I'm just going to say it. They're doing better than I even gave them credit for coming into this. And I think we need to start maybe reevaluating our expectations. I mean, coming into this, we already did know that the only 2 losses this team even really had at 4-2 were, kind of the expected 2 best teams coming into this. They had a great turnaround since injecting some of that newer talent coming in, and maybe this was kind of written on the wall all along, and we're only just seeing kind of the impacts now that we're seeing them up against what is expected to be the best team, or at least what is the expected best team, right?
Yeah, and as far as expected best team goes, they do actually win that first map still, so as far as the scoreline is looked at, all par for the course for the Shanghai Dragons as we head into map number 2. This one is going to be a choice of the Guangzhou Charge. And spoilers, it is going to be hybrid. Midtown has been selected here, so we'll see how things go. Noting that on the Charge side of gameplay, Choi has been the standout. He's been the standout for some time. I would have said that he's been a standout on the team for 2 years running now. But in this meta, it is a Genji meta. This guy was playing the Genji even last year in various situations where Genji wasn't considered that good. And now when we get into Overwatch 2 and Genji is amazing, Choi is showing his value, and especially against some of the top tier Genjis that we have in the world, where again, personally consider who are you to be the #1 Genji, and some of that value gets shown in how clutch he has been and how strong his performance mechanically in the neutral has been. But Choi getting a number of those first bloods specifically onto who are you has been a tipping point.
Yeah, I think that's been the most interesting thing here, for me at least, is seeing that there's obviously a very high amount of influence that these Genjis have in this region specifically. You look at, my wheelhouse, talking about NA, talking about EU. I mean, there's obviously a lot of focus on Brig, there's obviously a lot of focus on the Junker Queen as well, but it feels like between these 2 teams, it is certainly a battle of the Genjis. Who are you? I don't know how much you buy into the, the whole, hairpin thing, the power-up that Vicky was talking about last week, but who are you? Very solid Genji, obviously one of the best, if not, you can make the argument that he is the best Genji, but right now it feels like Choi is battling that out in a big way, and Shanghai Dragons already working their way through. I'm questioning, can Who Are You stay alive against Choi, or are they going to find him again?
We'll see if they can make the rotation happen first and foremost. A couple of Dragons members are kind of caught out here in the open. And if Who Are You is indeed the best, well, Choi can't be that far behind, especially in this fight now. Xerneas onto Void and Joyce in 1. And Lee J gone. Dragons get cleaned up. Is it going to be a 5-0 cleanup though? Looks like Lip might be able to get out with his life. I don't think Charge will chase further for this, but I do like to see that as Dragons try and push on through for the rotation, Charge intercept straight away.
So much of this Charge team seems so centered around the Genji, and I think a lot of the teams in this region certainly feel the same about their player in that role, but Charge are just getting so much value out of getting someone low, like Lip, like Who Are You right now, and then executing so fast that there's no possible way that Shanghai Dragons can actually react to it.
Who Are You is now very critical. 1 HP, taken down by Xerneas.
They swarmed it.
And is there going to be any response? Krong is low, but Dragons, here we go. They do get the response on the Krong, so that is going to be a Genji for Junker Queen trade that will favor the attackers, and this is where Void gets an opportunity to pop up as well. Krong is not in his way. Losing Izayaki, both Brigs lost in this fight. And the respawners, they're going to go in the favor of Dragons. They have the much closer respawns now. They have the much greater damage and the kills. The rest of the Charge will fall. This might even just be a cap straight away, because as Krong comes back in, the rest of his members are too far off.
Yeah, not a lot of time left for Xerneas to get back into position. They're going to require that speed as well just to get there, so this is given away. And I think a lot of that fight really boils down to the fact that Shanghai Dragons, despite losing a player, the trades that they made after, especially with the Junker Queen going down, Krong falling out early there, Dragons are just going to have that pillar that they can rely on in the shout from the Junker Queen, the damage, everything else that Dragons can do with that still on the field. Now Charge, I'm looking at Krong, I'm looking at Who Are You. Those are certainly the focus targets.
Look at that headshot coming through from Lip. Disgusting stuff. Choi, though, pulls out the blade regardless. Sound Barrier will block up most of the damage. Will be able to save Lip. 4 versus 4 so far. The extra rallies now both popped on both ends. Who Are You not quite on top of the blade, but with Krong going down, Xerneas couldn't save him. Charge only have 3 in this fight. Jimmy have Choi. They're here. One of them is still coming back from spawn. You have Choi going towards the Dragon spawn. This will be a cleanup for sure. And Dragons, they get to walk on forward. Charge have to back out.
And I think ideally for them, they also want to make sure that they're not losing bodies here, because that just extends the progression of this payload that Dragons can actually pull out. Of course, all support off the field now, but Dragons, they win that fight and they come away ahead in economy as well. I mean, come on. That's what makes Dragons just so different, it feels like, because they're able to put themselves in these types of scenarios where they have significant advantages.
Well, they, they deflect out the Choice of One Blade. They matched the Sound Barrier and Rally of Xerneas and Farway, and then they won the fight without using any further ultimates in DPS or Void's Rampage, which has come on now. Charge looking for spacing, but will go through first and foremost on the overclock and immediately finds Valley. Charge at this stage, trying to match with Jimmy, and Jimmy's gone as well. Lip is just doing way too much here. Charge on the back foot, and that foot looks broken to me. Easyaki with a couple more, and the Dragons, it's a 1-for-1 ult trade. You talk about economy, and even when Shanghai Dragons use ults, Charge still match and they still lose.
Yeah, I mean, one ult, one fight win. That's the kind of thing that separates great from the greatest. You can see Charge piling back in. They're investing on this one.
It's a big Rampage. Give Krong credit for that one. Who are you actually put into the dirt with it as well, because Sagenji can't really afford to heal up when you're amping it out. You're in a little bit of a rough spot, so the blade is not getting high as Valley. Krong taking a bunch of damage now that the Dragons do have a bit of time to sustain themselves, and with that, Cap comes in, kills come in as well. 2 more ultimates still to play through. They won't need them. They'll save them for C. And Krong, lucky to have his life saved here. The hunt is on. Dragons want him down, and they might just get him too, because Ichigon comes flying around the corner. The Sound Barrier, not the Sound Barrier, the Sound Wave. That's the official name for Boop. We'll push him backwards, and Dragons, easy push coming.
Charge setting back up. You can see, of course, support ults coming back online. That means that this should ideally come down to, some longer extended fights. That's what we're looking to see. However, this kind of hasn't followed that script. We're seeing time and time again, just opening picks happen. You can see who are you pressured. Same thing with Choi here. A lot of focus on trying to find something early, and they get it.
Yep, that's big. Lee Jagon doesn't save his teammate either, so Sound Barrier only going to be good onto 4 members so far. Dragons will actually use that to disengage. They won't push further forward. So he gets to save his Sound Barrier for now. We'll have to use that to block out the Rampage from Void. That's up next for the Shanghai Dragons.
So now Charge kind of taking control of the driver's seat. Thanks to Choi, large part at least. But Dragons, they're building into some things that I think are going to be dangerous, especially with that pick there. You still have to worry about Lip.
That's the thing, right? Dragons with 5, Krong low HP. Lip is still doing plenty of damage, and he'll get that kill to Krong. The rally coming on through. Pretty comfortable for the Shanghai Dragons. At this rate, Charge is looking for any trades. They don't want to have to burn their double support ultimate, so they'll take the fight loss. They'll take the rally from Iziaki, but it is going to be the final defense now.
And I think this is all going to come down to tempo in this potential last fight with over 2 minutes on the clock. Still here, who are you? Hasblade. There's 2 support ults on the side of Charge. They have their shout, of course, that they can utilize as well. But they're playing aggressive, and they're trying to find a pick so they can stabilize early here.
Krong is just so in danger. Lip hit many headshots on him. Double rails, I believe. It's a double support ultimate from Charge, but it's not enough. Everyone's just dying inside this rail. Everyone's dying inside the Dragon's damage coming through. It's a complete wipe, and in what feels like one attempt from the Shanghai Dragons, they get the C push done. I know there was that one fight where they did disengage with the Sound Barrier. That was the only fight they actually lost on C. Otherwise, it's just a completely free push through. 150 in the time bank locked up for the Shanghai Dragons now, looking pretty comfortable. I mean, you talked about the economy the entire way through. Felt like it was in the hands of the Shanghai Dragons.
Yeah, I think there was probably one solid moment there where Charge felt like they were potentially in control of that. And
okay,
okay,
that's
different. We're showing some of that's like the Brig tech, but like just completely ramped to oblivion.
Did he get booped as well? I'm not too sure there.
I'm not sure. I mean, definitely the scalability, the verticality rather, that comes from the timing there certainly came from his own Rampage. But
okay.
But well, yeah, the Charge, of course.
They say one of the biggest weaknesses of the Jungle Queen is that she has no verticality. Well, I guess if you can just sort of angle yourself on the car the right way during a Rampage, you can fly up. That's the one.
Of course, 150 on the time bank certainly feels good for Dragons, especially coming off of a map win already, but a hotly contested one. This one, I think, feels more in line with at least the Dragons' expectations. certainly for themselves. And one thing that I am noting as well is a little bit of an adaptation. Something that we saw early in the control map that we just got through was Who Are You really positioning forward, getting caught up by choice of one. We've seen it a couple times here on this map, but they're reserving that a little bit now, pulling choice of one into them and then allowing Dragons more time to deal with Krong, because certainly I think that's a differentiating factor between these two teams. Who Are You is the focus for Charge, whereas Krong is the focus for Dragons.
We're seeing Krong take a bunch of damage early in fights, and this time it'll be Xerneas caught on the wayside, very far ahead of his team. I mean, we know teams like to push in that direction for a rotation, and with Xerneas just down so early, there's no speed boost, right? You have Krong that can shout your team out, and Krong himself will be taken down. Because this is going to be a number of kills, 3 I believe so far, and on top of that, a late stag onto Krong that's going to cost him time.
Time is going to be key here, because time means that you're, of course, going to be losing out in some of your economy if you can progress through this map. There's a lot of building that needs to occur here, and if you're losing bodies early like they did with Xerneas, you're going to fall way behind in those really key cooldowns like Sound Barrier that Dragons are going to have massive advantages, and they can start rolling through some of these ultimates. That's going to be very dismal looks for Charge.
In previous occasions as well, we've seen Choice of One kind of at least match or exceed Who Are You in many cases for the play. That's not even happening now. With Krong dying on rotation, it's more of the same here. Dragons can even just play with their food a little bit. They don't have to kill everyone straight away. They will just take their pickings one by one. It's a Guangzhou Charge smorgasbord for the Shanghai Dragons. Will allow 3 to get away. They probably could have gotten a little bit more there, but they're being respectful, they're being disciplined, they don't want to overchase, they don't want to spawn camp. Pretty hard to do that as the defending team here, and Charge lose another fight. It's nearly 2 minutes gone.
Yeah, I mean, they literally don't want to do exactly what Charge kind of baited themselves into back on Oasis, right? It's the exact same kind of situation, and they can keep finding these picks
again
through the rotations.
Some rotations that are not working out. Charge, they just can't get players across. They might have to think about another way to do this, to even slightly staggering out Krong there. Like, time is a factor, and we said 2 minutes gone. Now it is officially 2 minutes gone, and we talked about Dragons not really going for a spawn camp. They thought about it here. They got real close towards the Charge spawn. Think better of it. Charge, by the way, haven't found a single ultimate. It's been more than 2 minutes. Not one ultimate available for the Charge.
And I think that's why Dragons did kind of toy with the idea of playing more aggressively. They know that they're ahead big time in terms of the ult charge. They can click tab right now and just see it, so it's a little bit easier to visualize those kinds of things with regards to ult tracking now. But Guangzhou Charge, I think now certainly slowing the pace a little bit, and I think that is much better for them because they can build. You can see them kind of coming closer, just a little bit.
Dragons don't mind if Charge slow things down. It's Charge's time that's ticking down at the moment. They're happy about that. I mean, Dragons nearly have the full Christmas tree up. 5 lights as Void is waiting for the Rampage, slightly ahead of Choice, ahead of Krong, and Choice One's about to get the Blade, but it's taking quite some time. I don't know that Charge will go for a long rotation here. Charge might just want to go for a quick engage, use some ultimates. Limp's already pulled out the overclock. Charge will do well to not get caught by it this time. Rallying to bolster the health, and here we go. Who Are You wants some damage, he wants some frags, he wants Choi first and foremost, because you know Choi is the target. He has been the carry member for the Charge. 2 members caught by the Rampage, and this Blade is all forfeited as the Guangzhou Charge can't do anything with their 3 ultimates. Shanghai Dragons had 5.
And I love that so much from Dragons too. I think good news for Charge is 30 seconds left. You have at least something. Dragons completely reset their economy all the way down to scratch, but Jimmy still has that overclock, could have potential to turn this around, but they have to touch still. They have to make their way through a choke that Dragons have caught them time and time again in it.
Look at this, Dragons are actually going to play in the trade. This is very rare. Teams don't do this. So what is the response going to be? Charge can go straight forward towards the point itself. Jimmy gets first blood on Limp for this fight, which is nice to see. Krong about to get the Rampage as well. That will be important. We'll probably end up having to burn that, despite it being a 5 versus 4. Dragons do not fall for any other members being killed by Jimmy. In fact, Jimmy's the one on 1 HP. Who Are You just solos, and what is going on there? Who Are You just decides that Jimmy is going to die? And the shoulders of Krong gets quite heavy here. Only Void caught. You want more from that Rampage. The Choice of One might still just deliver more, as the Guangzhou Charge have a 5 versus 3 advantage. They'll get that extra kill to Lee Jae Gon, and they will be able to get the point, but it costs them all of the time on A. Cost them the 2 ultimates as well, and even then, they were losing members.
I think one of the big things too that has me a little bit concerned for the Charge moving forward. You know, you want to be hopeful that we got a great series here, and that Charge are really in their element off of a 4-2, great setup. But with Dragons already pushing ahead, they've lost Krong Oh no.
Yeah, well, Charge is trying to get a little bit far forward there, right? They want to get aggressive versus Dragons, and once again, somebody does get punished when we see Charge walk on forward. I mean, it's their namesake, right? They're trying to charge on forward, but Shanghai Dragons will have none of that. 2 minutes to go through, and immediately this is where you would like to see Charge get a bit of momentum, but they're sort of sent back to spawn at a reset as the door closes, and the fire truck has gone through. Dragons control the space.
To see if they can actually kind of choke out Choi So-won and deny him some of that forward aggression, because as we've talked about, Choi loves to take some of that space away, look for pressure onto his, you know, opponent across the aisle, and who are you, and try to shut that player down and create an opening. But even when they get picked, the Dragons are really good about turning fights, being down a member.
Choi's lucky that you already invested that dash in, but Lip is still looking for targets, nearly caught ahead there. Sound barrier being popped regardless, and that's Charge looking for the comeback. They only wanted to turn a little bit, re-engaging now. You found his timing, just has to deal with the faraway rally. Choi got his play shut down by Lip. Disgusting rail shot, and now who are you? There's unimpeded, there's a lot of Charge members out for the picking. Wants Krong, will get Krong. Who are you says he will die and he will go down. Will they walk further forward? Because this is prime territory for a spawn camp, and the only member down is Izayaki, but that might be important. Dragons might not be able to spawn camp with 4, they need 5 alive. Is that a deflect? I think it was a deflect from Who Are You.
Yeah, big time. Dragons still have laser guns, sound barrier, which is huge, but I think the big thing there is 2 concepts, baiting and layering. You saw Who Are You pull the blade out, they already had the rally invested. Now you bait out the sound barrier, they layer those 2 ultimates together. Charge immediately lost someone despite utilizing both of those resources, and now Dragons have both a fight win, a massive advantage in time, and a massive advantage in economy, in the fact that they can utilize the sound barrier to play aggressive. With 10 seconds left on the clock, they can end it.
I mean, Void will get Rampage in this fight, there's no doubt about that. As long as Void doesn't die, he will have a Rampage. Even if he does die, Dragons have so much space to play through. Charge have not made any considerable distance on the payload. They're even barely getting into the underpass. Choi Solo pushing for now. Dragons being patient. They can go for the Rampage at any point. I don't know if they've read the old economy of Charge correctly, but they could even tempo beat forward. There's nothing really to counter out from the Charge side, who currently are just waiting for the Jimmy overclock. Make no mistake, this is the final push, and Charge, they want to move forward, but it is so risky. You see how timid they are in this fight.
This ends now.
Just hoping, praying for any kind of pick. Charge have been good about finding them, but
Dragons
they absolutely require one.
Oh no, they C9. Okay, well that literally happened. Unlucky, I guess. That's the most like anticlimactic. Like, oh no, they just whoop, they C9. That happened. So Dragons. Here's what happened. Here's what happened. Let me paint you the picture right here. The Guangzhou Charge. They're walking in with their fantasy RPG party. They're walking to the Dragon's dungeon, and then they just they leave. Actually, I think we're a little under-leveled for this raid. They tried to push that payload forward. I don't know who stepped off. I think it was Choi's job to keep pushing. He might have stepped off, but it was just done. It was Dragons waiting out Jimmy's overclock, and they're like, okay, we'll wait out the overclock and then go. And then the game just ended. I can't believe that.
Yeah, I felt like we were kind of building into this, you know, great potential climax. Charge pushing in and maybe being able to find something. They were looking for the pick, but instead they found the end of the map. And unfortunate for them that they go down 0-2, and it's series point already for the Dragons.
Yeah, that is really rough for the Guangzhou Charge. I think they were already in a pretty tough position to be in, but you'd like to see them at least take the final fight, see if there's anything left in there. Not going to happen. Dragons capped through the entire map with a pretty reasonable time bank, and the Guangzhou Charge are now down 0-2 in the series. Shanghai Dragons at match point in our opening match of the Summer Showdown tournament. Don't go anywhere. Possibly the final map coming on right after this.
This ends now.
I know King Charles III just got inaugurated, but King Charles IX just made an appearance on our broadcast here in the Overwatch League for the Summer Showdown Day 1 tournament on Midtown. An overtime push goes awry for the Guangzhou Charge, and unfortunately they got no one to blame but themselves. That was pretty egregious. It didn't look like they had a lot of chances to win that map, Heroics, but at least they would have had a chance had they continued pushing on forward. I was really looking forward to how that fight could have gone for them.
Yeah, and on a map and really a meta that is just so dependent on snowballing and momentum. I mean, there's nothing to say, I think, that Charge, if they found a way to get through point B, that they couldn't have at least finished the map and given themselves an opportunity to force a draw or just something to help set them up long term. But either way, Charge, unfortunate. I think a little bit of a deflating loss there, at least a little bit, but you have to kind of scrap that and you just have to move on. You had that time now to kind of figure out, okay, where do we want to take this series? We obviously know that Shanghai Dragons have made some adaptations. Obviously, they're not catching Who Are You out as much early in some of these pre-fights. Yes, they're getting some picks, but Dragons, they stay so composed in the mid-fight that even when they lose someone early, they're still able to find Krong and then have that advantage in the fact that they have their pillars still on the floor, with Void being the only Junker Queen still alive.
Let's move forward now. Map chosen for number 3 is going to be Circuit Royale, coming through from the Guangzhou Charge side. And despite Oasis looking competitive, I would argue here Midtown looked less than competitive, given that it took until the OT for Charge to even get the cap onto A. I mean, how many failed rotations do they have until they just said, screw it, we finally found ultimates like 3.5 minutes deep into this attack. Let's just use our ultimates, hope for the best. And that actually worked out. Remember, Shanghai Dragons at one point had 5 ultimates. They did win that 5 ultimate fight, but you know, when we came back further forward from that Charge, managed to rack up a little bit more, push things further into B. That's when things fell apart. So if they can gain some real distance now on Circuit Royale, that would be pretty good. It will be Dragons once again attacking, Charge defending.
As we've seen already this series, and as we've seen really throughout this entire stage and throughout this entire meta, a lot of this is defined by, and certainly on this map in particular, defined by spawn holds. You're going to see virtually every hold here, or sorry, every spawn here is defendable, and right out of the gate, Charge is going to look to do that. Shanghai Dragons, we have seen some teams offer some swaps to try to break these spawn holds, but Shanghai Dragons, the only thing that they're changing is the Ashe, and this is, I think, the statistically most dominant Ashe pick, Lip, right?
Actually, I have no idea. I will have to check the stats on that one, but I do know that when you come out of spawn...
I looked it up. He is.
Okay, well, you know, I'll trust you on that one. We'll call it statistically the best Ashe so far that we've seen. And for the Charge, we'll still try and just not quite spawn camp anymore, but play the opening corner, right? That's the next defendable position. You'll notice that Lip will go straight off of Exogen once the spawn camp is gone. Okay, Jimmy does kill Lee Jae-gon. That will just force Shanghai Dragons to walk backwards a bit.
Shanghai losing that player. As we've seen, you know, a few times throughout this series, it's all about composing yourself, making sure that you can try to find some pressure, and they find it. Oh, man.
Oh, Jimmy, I think it took a rail there as well from Lip. I mean, that's just the power of the Sojourn coming on through, and you know, once you're no longer defending or trying to get out of a spawn hold, you are just opening the gates, and now they're kicking the doors right on down. It's a big cleanup. Fireway will trade Lee Dragon. He's the only player that's actually died in the Shanghai Dragons 2 now, but it doesn't matter. He respawns quickly. He's a Lucio. He'll get back into the fight. Dragons getting some real good push on now.
And that's something a little bit different from the Shanghai Dragons as well. I mean, typically you see them pressuring out Krong. That gives allowance for Void to step up, take space away, and then they can kind of out-pressure, just have that delta advantage. Instead, they went for the instantaneous pick. That looked more like Charge's playstyle, actually.
Well, now Who Are You has the Blade. Xerneas has the beat in response, so it's very important. Who Are You has to be careful. He needs to be healed on up, and that fleet needs to come out immediately. Choi was low, he has been saved. Lee Jae-gon actually matches as well. Choi Sik-1 has a timing here, but they might not be able to do anything about it if Krong is dead and Choi to follow. 99%, that's a heartbreaker. Charge, gonna have to give this one up, and with that, they'll have to give up the point as well. They'll be lucky to save even these two members. Jimmy, he will be forfeited. Xerneas, the only one surviving. Oh, what's this? Krong got the bad spawn? That's really unlucky.
Yeah, I think at least some good news for Charge is that a lot of this downtime here. Okay, this does not feel as good. This does not feel as good now that you're losing more bodies to this spawn. And as we talked about, we said, look, every spawn here is holdable, and that doesn't discount the fact that you can do it on offense too.
look how deep the Dragons are. I mean, are they attacking C or B? It's hard to tell at this
45.
stage.
They have someone pushing.
Apparently, yeah, exactly. They are pushing B. That's the thing, though. They're so deep on the C. They are doing an offensive spawn camp. Now, that's rare. You see the deep in the spawn camp. On attackers, though, not so much. Ultimate's coming through now. Who are you gets a kill regardless of all of that. Choi wants to save the day. Dodges out a rail, importantly. The deflect is gone now, and with that, his life will be forfeit. But Choi did actually get void down, so that was a pretty even beginning. This is now no longer even. The Shanghai Dragons, we don't have any Junker Queens on board, but Shanghai Dragons with 4, as they've had this entire time, it's more than enough.
Charge just investing so much in those early fights, and if they can get a very decisive win with their investment early on, then they do well. But Shanghai, and here you go.
Yeah, this is what we're waiting for, right? Jimmy pops the overclock, immediately gets Lip down. You saw Lip trying to get out. The Dragons overstaying their welcome. They wanted to get very aggressive on towards the C spawn point, and they're going to charge now. A great ability to defend B. Did Jimmy get stuck on the geometry there? I think he might have. Is that a bug? I have no idea, but it is unlucky. And with that, Dragons, they've turned this fight around. Who are you gets an opportunity to full play. Jimmy starts to fight for the charge, but who are you ends it, and that's the cap as well.
Shanghai Dragons move forward, and again, it just comes down to that same story, right? Charge come through, they're hot right off the start. If they can get some value, they can win the fight. But unfortunately for them, Dragons are playing that long game. They're trying to bait you forward. They're looking for that disengage opportunity, and once they catch you there, they are looking to turn the fight with that pivot. They can invest their shout, turn things around, find a pick, and start establishing some dominance midway through a fight. I think Charge just kind of keep, I don't want to say falling for it, but they're playing into it a little bit, right?
I would describe it as Dragons kind of disengaging well and then being able to regroup their respawners, and Charge failing to convert off initial picks right there. Not shy about getting first picks. We've seen Jimmy get that kill to Lip. They can't do much more than that. Void fails his rampage. That's going to entirely go wide. There might have been boop, no idea. Sound barrier from Xerneas regardless. Just for the tempo, he has a Charge walk on forward. That's exactly what they need. This is the first time that Charge will successfully win a team fight. Dragons on the run back to their roost. And a full disengage that's not going to be turned around.
Yeah, no way to collate when you lose 3 of your bodies, and you lose the pillar as well and the Junker Queen. So Shanghai Dragons, they back up, but they're looking for that next opportunity. Sound Barrier still online. They're going to have Rally there as well, so they should have an advantage in terms of just being able to press forward, have that pressure delta in their favor, and look for those picks.
There's a pick. Yep, Choi down. That's what you want if you're Dragons. Choi on 80% as well. And the picks continue. Once Dragons get 1, they will get the second and further from that fairly easy. Who are you? Cleaning them up, and slow burn kills. Well, Xerneas will at least slow down the payload, but it's a 5-0 sweep here. Not a single member of Charge could at least trade on the Dragons, and now Dragons walk forward.
I think one of the big things there as well is just pure economy win for them, right? I mean, not having to utilize either of those support ults that we just mentioned, on top of the fact that they have great time bank to use as well, and another pick.
That's the power railgun once again. Lip. I mean, I don't. You talked about his Ash stats. I don't know if you got the Sojin stats for me as well. Sound Barrier not quite being popular. Here it is now to counter the Dragonblade from Choi Se-Hwan, but it doesn't matter what Choi does. Everybody is dying. I mean, Xerneas is dead in that fight. This is going to be the cap. Charge just cannot get a frag. Void's done too much here. Lip has done too much to open up the fight. Choi's blade is not even going to be enough to save the Guangzhou Charge. It's been enough in previous maps, in previous situations versus any other team, but versus the Shanghai Dragons, I'm not going to call it a speed run. The 153 is damn quick.
Yeah, especially on this map in particular. This is a map where it's so easy to get hung up. There's a couple of corners that are very difficult to get beyond, especially if a defense knows how to maneuver and rotate. You look at B and that like S curve that you have to get up, the high ground you have to push through. Maybe not as devastating, the high ground aspect, at least in this meta, but even still, some difficult geometry. And you asked for some Sojourn stats, and I do have some. I think, looking back at the grav bag from, weeks 15 through 18, the main thing that I remember seeing there, and that's unfortunate, the
mega
baggage cart there.
Yeah, you got bad. Anyway, continue, please.
But I think the main thing that I noticed about those stat lines for Sojourn, especially when we talk about Lip really hitting his stride now on it, is that he had a major standout stat line that I think people aren't talking enough about, and that is solo kills per 10. And the fact that you have someone that is able to just outright delete someone on their own. And it wasn't like a little bit. literally double the average and well above the second place person.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it was like 1.06, and I think second was somewhere around like the high 0.6s. I mean, drastic
what,
difference.
The way I read into that stat line of solo kills is also first bloods. Now, we don't have a stat line for first blood. We really should get one of those if we can, but they don't currently exist. The reason why I say first bloods is because as Choi gets void down here, so that's the points falling apart, is the fact that when you get a solo kill, technically on a Sojourn, it's like the opening rail rights. Lip killing Jimmy multiple times, and Dragons, despite losing members, like, okay, I was going to say they're still in this one, they're now starting to back on it. They need 5. Charge, yeah, Jimmy will swap over towards the Sojourn as well as Lip did in the opening. With Choi getting Who Are You down, as soon as Dragons had 5 again, they instantly lose another.
All about the picks for Charge, all about starting early, setting an advantage. Dragons, on the other hand, looking for their footing, and looks like they do have it here. 3 minutes on the time bank, so not much required from Charge, at least just yet, but Dragons, I think, they're going to start asking.
This could be where they really put their foot down, right? So early shout has been expended here. Lip, there it is, that's what we're talking about. Actually, that wasn't a rail kill, but in case you get it. Jimmy does get a kill for Who Are You, so it's a 1-for-1 trade so far. Krong for Who Are You, I mean, both are really important members here. I think Charge, they have the slightly closer respawn distance. They can't really afford the taxi, so you don't see Xerneas going back for Krong just yet. Choi wants to play it in, but you need the player advantage, and I guess player advantage technically generated. Krong comes back as well. If there's any time to go for the plate, it is now. No sound barrier from Lee Jae-gon as he's still at 94 and still respawning. Charge can just force this fight to happen.
Yeah, I think they expect Lee Jae-gon to have this barrier. I think luckily for Dragons, they're going to have time to build it. But
nope, he's not going to get it. He's
Never
not going to get it. Jimmy's too good today. He's just sniped them down. That's going to be a free fight.
I mean, stepping up since stepping in, right? I mean, that is Jimmy's story through and through. He came in, has definitely looked like a really strong talent, especially when you talk about trying to pair up with someone like Choi Siwon, especially in this meta here, and you can already see Dragons pushing into Choi there. But with Jimmy having that overclock available, how can he stand up to Lip? Lip's going to have one himself. Who can get the better firepower off?
I mean, this has just been a big turnaround for Jimmy, right? Because it was Lip getting those first bloods so many times so far. On the other end, when Dragons were attacking, both overclocks, as you mentioned, is going to come on through. Choice one cleaning up easy Yaki there. Sound barrier now being matched on both ends. It's the player Who Are You that's looking to be the difference maker. Just can't quite go through all of the shielding, and Jimmy finds a headshot to Who Are You. So when all is said and done, Jimmy gets the better of their opponents. Jimmy continues. He gets to kill the Void as well. This is falling apart for the Dragons. We talked about them maybe putting their foot down on B. B is not looking too healthy for the Dragons.
Not at all, and now you see some of that like spawn camp type action coming through as well for the Charge. Going to be backing off, not looking as aggressive as the Dragons, but you see here Dragons with the rally. They're going to be forced to utilize this in the pre-fight.
Yeah, and Who Are You's even on the Tracer. Recall's gone, by the way, so... Okay, whoa, Charge is back on out. They're trying to wait out the rally. That makes sense. Yep. Yeah, they are going to wait out the rally here. But I'll tell you something, though. It does allow Dragons to reclaim space. I don't think it's the worst thing in the world. It's quite an expensive way, given that you have to pop an entire ultimate to just get the space back. But coming out of the choke positioning is not comfortable either. So we'll take that if you are Dragons.
I think on top of that as well, Dragons having the Tracer on the board as well. Charge are comfortable with this. They know that they've waited out the rally, and they don't have to deal with a Genji.
This time Void will connect. Last time the Rampage left wanting. This time he'll get Krong. Choi's down low as well, but not quite dead. Far away being the next target. And Dragons, this is what I'm talking about right here. They might have used an entire rally. Literal zoning rally, by the way. That's a good meme. But off the back of it, they get map control. You can't underestimate how powerful map control is, because if you are the team trying to come out of spawn and fighting through the choke of B to get back on the payload, that's hard. But when you have actual position to play with, suddenly things become a lot easier.
Yeah, and on top of that, that fight win is critical, because think about how long it's going to take to get those rotations in back to the objective, and think about also the lethality that you have to face in those rotations, on top of the fact that Who Are You had enough time to make that swap back over to Genji.
It's a big one from Krong, and it needs to be a big one because they need to get Dragons off the board here to cap beat Choi. 29 towards the plate. He might still have to pull it through because the numbers do not look good for the Charge. They're one ahead, but they need a lot more than that. The Blade's looking good now. 2 players caught on the wayside, and a final member being taken down. That's Who Are You on the side. The Shanghai Dragons, despite it looking like a good B defense, the Guangzhou Charge not to be deterred, not just yet. The extra blade from Choi required, and it does the deed.
And now we move into the final section of the map, and this is, I think, a haven for Choi, right? We always talk about how Choi is looking to try to take space away, kind of be that head of the spear for the charge, and this is a map where Dragons are going to be taking away space as much as they can, rotating together, but if Choi can actually find a nice angle to work with here, he can continue to potentially find some of these opening picks again.
Well, Dragons trying to push through the choke at the top of the stairs here as well. It's looking pretty difficult. They are somewhat through, but instantly Iziaki's gone, so that's the rally taken off the table. Iziaki can't quite match Farway, and with that, the Dragons, they're not going to throw in any extra ultimates here, no sound barriers. They're just going to allow the Charge to collect these kills, 5 for 0, wipe exactly what the Charge need. Dragons, unfortunate, can't quite engage there, and this is really dangerous territory now. I don't think Charge can match 153, but they can definitely cap.
Question is, can they break through the Dragons' advantages that they kind of have? I mean, you see both of those support ults, the fact that they can layer those now, they can force that, they can reset, certainly, but they also have respawn advantage, and that could be huge, especially when you pair it with the blade from Who Are You. It's just going to be up a little bit faster than Choi's. So
very critical that Zerni has to get to the speed off, because Who Are You is going to be looking for those kills. Jimmy as well, he's been brilliant for those first picks. Has the overclock available. 146 now. There's still time to cap, and Charge, they can play patiently if they want to. Again, they can't match 153. We've accepted that fate, but can they get more than that? Here comes Jimmy now. He wants some blood, and the Dragons will come on through. They might just deliver that one. Who Are You with the blade? Void takes down Krong. It's already not looking great for the Charge. Zerni's beat can only do so much. Has some decent trades, so Jimmy a choice here one. Finds 2 on the opposite end. It's 3 versus 3. The extra rally from Iziaki could equalize things and give Dragons a bit of an advantage. They've only got 2 members alive, but here it's talked about the respawn advantage. Can that come through for the Shanghai Dragons? Charge can't get any more kills. It stops now. They are resetting.
Just took too long, unfortunately, for the Charge. Dragons stabilized. That rally helped them do it. And now Dragons without resources, I think this looks a lot better for the Charge, but even still, that respawn advantage, you cannot count that out, despite the fact that the blade is ready for Choi, and we've seen him get those 3, 4, 5 Ks already. He might be able to get that done, but I think barring that, there's still going to be a struggle ahead.
Yeah, and this is a decision for Void to make as well, because he's got to get this rampage underway. Krong, if he dies here, that's critical. He fails his wall climb, but he doesn't die, so that's very important that Charge at least retain the blade capabilities. A lot of low members on the side of the Dragons. Krong whiffed his rampage, but they might still be able to win the fight. Look how low the Dragons are. Who Are You's down. Void catches 2. Very low HP on everybody. Charge now have to be very careful, and it's just a mixed bag of kills across the board. 2 versus 3, I believe, and Choi's got a lot. Who Are You respawns. Liv tries to go overclock. He's dead. Who Are You barely touches. 2 versus 1 currently. The recall's available, but Who Are You cannot touch. He tries to blink on M. He might have been body blocked. He might just have been a fraction of a hair off from getting the touch going, because if he had managed to touch, Dragons with a further response would have had it. That came down to a 2 versus 1 with extremely critical HP on both sides.
Could have been a massively heroic moment from Who Are You and the Tracer there, because the timing of those kills certainly favored Dragons. If they could just get 1 more body on, they would have had 3 more right after. They would have had everything they needed to actually just shut this map down right then and there. But certainly respect over to Charge, their ability to just end it, make sure that they can cancel out that stall from Who Are You. Great way to take that fight as well. I mean, when everything broke down, you typically see Dragons, that's where they feel most confident and they take control. But Charge, despite all of that, and also despite the respawn advantage, they found a way forward.
Krong's a very unfortunate rampage whiff, but thankfully that didn't end up costing them the attack, as they'll still get it done. And that's the kind of thing, right? This is why we look at Midtown and we're thinking, yeah, it didn't look great for the Charge, but maybe they can just clutch on through a fight. It feels like that exact clutch on through of a fight just occurred on that C offense. So we're going to go to time back now, a minute versus 2:42. Charge had just, I think, barely enough time to work through there. Expect Jimmy to go from the, I was going to say Ash, but he'll actually go forwards. He would have made the first and foremost. Obviously still can just play the Ash on the exit, as, again, they're trying to break the spawn hole, right? So this is a good character to do that with.
Ooh, already investment of the shout. Void goes down in spite of that. Dragons, I mean, they're just backed off immediately, right?
I have to. Yeah, they'll be lucky to not lose more than that, but I think Huayu's dead, so that's going to be 4 out of 5 gone. Lip the only survivor. I don't think they can chase Lip down. Yeah, he's too far away, but 4 out of 5. Void going down straight away, that's a rough one. Choi gets a parting gift from Lip. Now remember here, it's with 1 minute. Everything counts here for the Dragons, or the Charge rather, so I mean, as much distance as they can get. If they can cap A, I think they'll be in a winning position. Winnable position.
I think the biggest thing for the Dragons, though, is that they know that Charge have to play the cart, right? They have to play on the cart, which means that one of their players, or potentially multiple their players, if they swap around that duty, is going to be forced to play a very static position. And in this meta, you do not want that.
Jimmy just got completely dashed in by Huayu, but will survive the green HP from Krong. Mining Shot will save the day here. No ultimates on board just yet from either team. Dragons in a great defendable position, and Lip, I think he caught somebody with a railgun but didn't get the kill. In fact, they are the ones that lose members. They've got 2 down now, 3, 2 alive for Dragons. It's not enough to hold on. We talk about Charge capping A to give themselves a winnable position, and they might just get that Lip with the fadeaway kill. But only Lip alive, not going to be enough.
Starting to wonder if the broader storyline about Charge, the fact that they had a rocky start, turn things back around, heating up potentially at the right time, could that be the same story that we have here in this series? Now in overtime, they continue this push, 2 fight wins in a row, decisive ones at that. I mean, this feels like a kind of different gear for the Charge already.
And I will be a little bit concerned for Jimmy because you don't have the same pop-off potential on the Ashe like you do on the Sojin. Can't just get those opening picks the way that Lip can, so we'll see if Lip can down deliver that with the overclock. Choice of one, he pulls plate, he's dead. Xerneas can save him. Krong now on critical HP, and that will probably be the fight done now. You pop both support ultimates, but there's not enough players still alive. And Lee J going with a celebration sound barrier. Jimmy can do nothing on the sides. Xerneas to Soul Lucio. Waves goodbye to the payload and the Guangzhou Charge. It was a good effort there, right on that second hairpin going up the hill of B. Gotta say though, that's a respectable amount of distance and effort coming through from the Guangzhou Charge, but when that fight started to go the way of Dragons, it really went the way of Dragons.
Initiating match.
I love that though from Charge. I feel like with what they had, the resources that were available, they got so much value. I mean, especially from the time. Now Dragons, where, I mean, considerable advantage coming into round 3, now moving into a round 4 here. I mean, that advantage feels all but gone, right? I mean, certainly, yes, it's still Dragons, but you look ahead, what needs to happen for Dragons to equalize, or rather surpass, more importantly? And you're looking at 3 fight wins probably that you have to take unless things go very differently, and maybe you can fit a 4th if you're the Charge. But remember, 3 fight wins is asking a lot in 240.
There's one other extra important thing as well. You do see a lot of teams after capping A get a lot of free push and a lot of very aggressive, you know, movements from 4 members while 1 person's pushing payload. 4 members are running at the literal spawn of the defending team as both the Genjis will wave at each other through the opening spawn gates here. And also how successful the Charge opening spawn camp is will be very telling, because this is where you shave time off. You can get a somewhat successful spawn camp, Dragons lose that time, but the most important thing is Dragons, or rather Charge, cannot allow Dragons to get that sort of momentum that a lot of teams usually get on B. That will be the end of their map and their series if that happens.
Ooh, nice first pick there from Charge, and the momentum that Dragons needs to establish early on. Oh, not going to get it.
All these fights are Jimmyable. You can always get those opening frags, or just any frags. Lip now comes through on the Widowmaker, so it's a mixed bag of like different, you know, opening hero choices. You get the Ashe, you get the Widowmaker, eventually the Sojin, as the payload starts pushing on through. So you'll say that's been semi-successful for Charge so far. I mean, they haven't dropped members, they got kills. Dragons are slowed down. You mentioned that even with 2-something minutes, it's, you know, it can be tricky. So if Charge can win from this positioning, this opening A has to be pretty damn good.
At least a win there for Dragons. One of the fights that they would have had to have won, they actually just take because of pressure. So they didn't even have to win that fight to start sending this cart forward. Now we get into the second stage, this front corner here, coming around this turn. This is all important. They have to find Krong if they want to keep pushing forward.
Krong's low. He is going to be the target here, as Shanghai Dragons have loved to go for it, but choice of 1. I mean, they'll get both. They'll get 3. They just keep on going. Xerneas and Jimmy now, only one's alive. They're trying to slow things down. Look, if you are going to lose a fight, you want to go into payload to at least slow things down. And this is now the difficult position for the Charge to be in. As the payload does come on through, Dragons think about pushing further forward, but you also notice that Charge lost that fight while the payload was not quite at the end just yet, so this will give Charge an opportunity to at least regroup.
Big thing here for Dragons, they get that cap. They still have a minute. You look at time to ult for all these characters, they're all even across the board for the Dragons. There's more than enough opportunity here for them, and they even could potentially lose this fight and still have that opportunity next. Although I think right now, given their advantage, it's all right here.
You have to be careful because if Dragons lose, they can get spawn camped as well, and that is probably going to be exactly what they need. Who Are You pulls the blade, shout to come on through. Sound barriers mixed in from both sides. The rallies will now be pulled on both ends as well. With Choice of One down, Charge can't pull their own blade. They're down to only 4 members. Jimmy has to save the day. Jimmy has to get this overclock in, otherwise it could be lights out. Lip will get the overclock first, putting the rails and looking for the damage, and the damage has been found from the far way. It's falling apart. Charge, this is the final defense. Jimmy gets shoved down. There's not going to be the rail coming through. There's not going to be any savior or saving moments from the Guangzhou Charge. It was a great effort. Second hairpin there. A decent amount of distance on their attack, but the Shanghai Dragons, they will not be denied the 3-0. It was competitive, but I think the Dragons, we expected them to win. We expected them to win by quite a clean margin as well, and they've done all the above.
And I think coming away from this series as well, as of course we're going to have so many conversations about Shanghai Dragons and, you know, obviously what they're capable of, especially now that it feels like they're looking more like the Shanghai Dragons that we're used to. But Charge, I feel like coming into this, we had that early question, right? We had that question of, what is their ceiling? And I think now we have at least an indication, maybe not a full answer, but at least an indication of what that may be. And I think that puts them more in line with some of the other teams that are here. Obviously, there's still the potential of seeing them take on Shanghai Dragons again, and they've gotten better over time. So perhaps that could look like a great match in the future if they get there. But either way, Charge looks just phenomenal.
Yeah, and this is maybe a crazy take here, X, but this game in some ways reminds me of the Seoul Shanghai game as well, which is a 3-0, but it kind of feels close given the maps that we did play. So I think there's still a bit of hope there, still left for the Guangzhou Charge, but player of the match here for the Shanghai Dragons and their 3-0 victory is going to go to Who Are You. I think it was, you know, a very obvious pick. He's got a number of the player matches so far in this particular season, and he doesn't disappoint in this game. I think the early Oasis did look a little bit rough when Choi was getting the better of him in several fights, not every single fight, but a couple of them. But as the series went on here, I think Who Are You he just leveled up more and more and more, and the Charge failed to contain him.
Yeah, this would actually be a really hard one for me to go through and select, because obviously if Charge wins, you're looking at Choice of One because of how much value they got early in the fight. Lip had some really strong first opening picks that kind of set the tone for Dragons and allowed them to turn back around. But obviously the performance from Who Are You, it's all about consistency with this player, right? It's just over the course of how many years has this player been considered one of, if not the best Genjis, and now we're in a meta where he can just go lights out. And that's exactly what we got here, even against Choice of One, who was playing so well. Who Are You still stood up to that test.
Yeah, even despite him basically being benched the entire year last year, you know, he kind of got a free ring off the Shanghai Dragons championship despite playing, I think, 20 minutes total. Now he is legitimately a starting member, and I think the most important member on the team. I mean, all the biggest successes that Dragons have had have been off the back of Who Are You specifically on the Genji. And if they are to win this tournament, if the Dragons are to bounce back finally and get their first title of 2022, it's crazy that we're still talking about their first title of 2020. They haven't gotten anything yet. It will be off the back of Who Are You's Genji moving through the summer showdown, and move through they do as they will now head towards our winner bracket final, and they're waiting for the winner of our next series, Philadelphia Fusion versus the Seoul Dynasty. So Guangzhou Charge moving down. They'll obviously face the loser here. An expected result here, X. Let's go to a bit of a quick break here. When we come back for the breakdown, we'll talk about a little bit more how we felt about that series and moving forward as well. So we'll see you soon.
The Overwatch League is brought to you by Upper Deck, the official trading card of the Overwatch League. And by TeamSpeak, the official voice supplier of the Overwatch League.
Welcome to Game Break here. Guangzhou Charge 0-3 down versus the Dragons in a full sweep victory, heading now into the winners finals. So strong looking Dragons as we expected, but as you can also see from the scoreline below you, it wasn't without a bit of turmoil. I mean, the Charge really, especially I think on Circuit Royale here, X kind of gave it to the Dragons, made it competitive.
Yeah, I think that's been kind of the story for the Dragons for their last 2 series, right? They've had to actually battle. And when you tie in the Fusion matchup where they lost a map there as well, this has certainly been Dragons put to a test in a big way. And I think a lot of that test came onto Who Are You here with Choice of One, really focusing him out, trying to take him out of these fights. But Dragons, I think the best thing that they did for themselves was adapt to that strategy. Who Are You started playing a little bit further back. They started playing more disengaged centric, and the Dragons found a way to kind of play the mid fight to their advantage instead.
And I really liked some of the mid-game decision-making by the Shanghai Dragons. And part of that, crucially for me, was on Circuit Royale when, again, they had that, what was it, the Brigida rally from Izayaki, which pushed Charge back, and Charge respected it enough to just, like, not even engage it. And it was a zoning rally, but that was enough. Like a zoning rally actually then led to the Shanghai Dragons putting themselves in a positional advantage position to get a fight win and kind of snowball from there. So I think that just stuff like that, where you're willing to give up ultimates that give you no tangible value, but the intangible of like kind of forcing the Charge away and buying yourself space ends up giving you a lot to work through. Just stuff like that is great to see from Dragons.
Yeah, I think that's probably a more nuanced version of what you see out of baiting ultimates to get out of spawn holds. I think when you look at the Dragons, what they're really, really good about is finding those little advantages and really exploiting them. Other teams, I think, aren't as consistent. They certainly know them. I mean, we have to give respect to all the teams that are here, even a team that we're going to be seeing a little bit later that only has 2 wins. Every one of these teams is very, very smart. They understand how to play this, and I think the major difference with Dragons is the fact that they're extremely consistent with the things that they are able to exploit and how often they're able to do it. And when they start getting exploited, they can adapt very much on the fly, like we saw after that first map.
Yeah, it just seems like, despite Charge being number 3 seed here, 4-2 record, the only 2 losses were to Seoul and Shanghai. They still haven't been able to sort of cross that barrier of getting 1 map versus Shanghai. So it's a 0-6 versus Shanghai so far in this particular tournament stage in the Summer Showdown across both qualifiers and now the tournament itself. But the tournament here does continue. We're going to go to another break. When we come back, Fusion versus Dynasty. It's number 2 versus number 4. We've seen this matchup so many times in the past, and it does deliver. So we'll see you on the other side for match number 2. Welcome to the Overwatch League here for the Summer Showdown tournament with me, Avril, and Herix. We're about to head into our second matchup of the day. We just witnessed the Shanghai Dragons getting a 3-0 sweep versus the Guangzhou Charge, and now it's time for Philly to take on the Seoul Dynasty.
Yeah, this was going to be the match that, I mean, granted, in the first series, we got a great one, but this was feeling like it was going to be really, I think, the most hotly contested series that we're going to see today. Hopefully that still pans out. But Seoul Dynasty, they're a team that, you know, I think Seoul Dynasty, they're one of the best teams in this region. There's a lot of discussion, though, of course, about are we seeing a little bit of a mirroring effect to midseason madness? I think, you know, certainly as we talk more about them, we could probably temper that at least to a degree. But Fusion, they played spoil to both of these teams, Seoul Dynasty and, of course, Shanghai Dragons. They had those golden stages set up, and Fusion spoiled those. They have, I think, like we talked about already, a little bit of a layer of chaos about them. They can play the spoiler. They also have the potential to have a really high ceiling and take series potentially, not just maps, against some of these teams that are more potentially established, right?
Well, let's meet the opening lineup for the Philadelphia Fusion, and yes, it is MN3 on board currently. As you know, we've had long discussions about what Fusion are trying to achieve in terms of their substitutions. Carpe played the majority of the games of the qualifier, but you know, Fusion really struggled, and since having MN3 back on the starting lineup, they've come back into form. When we look at their final week's worth of performances, both versus Seoul and the win versus Hangzhou Spark, I mean, it definitely does give you a good feeling about Fusion now having this upswing late into the tournament qualifier, into the actual tournament itself, and that's dangerous. And this is why I think Dragons wanted to avoid the Philadelphia Fusion in the opening matchup, because we saw them 3-0 Guangzhou. They're comfortable versus the Guangzhou Charge. Fusion, as you mentioned, it's a mixed bag because their peaks are so high. Look, their lows have been very low as well. When the Fusion really kick into high gear, they can beat anybody here. They can beat the Dragons, they can beat the Seoul Dynasty, and if you are Fusion, I don't think you're even necessarily scared of Seoul today, even though they've had your number in the past. Seoul have beaten the Fusion this year, especially far more than Fusion have been able to beat Seoul just at one time, right? And Seoul have to be careful here because Fusion have only looked to go from strength to strength, but they have to find that level of consistency now. As Seoul Dynasty, we'll take a look at their starting lineup as well. They have been one of our most dominant teams this year. They started as our most dominant team in the Summer Showdown qualifiers, and they're still our second seed for a good reason.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, you know, again, just to bring up, there's a lot of talk. Okay, are we getting Seoul Dynasty back into kind of that mid-season madness swing, or is this something different? I think we can at least sort of answer that, right? I mean, starting off 12-0 in maps, they had a great start to this tournament, or rather this stage, and now going into this tournament, yes, they did drop a series, but it was against Shanghai, and yes, it was a 3-0, but it was a lot closer. I mean, certainly you look at that series, and I think you could easily tell that the scoreline doesn't necessarily reflect what happens when you look at the film, when you look at how everything actually broke down. And at an individual level, Dynasty still has incredible talent, and it's not like you just lose out on what started you off so hot early on in this stage. I think really this is more of a situation where Philly Fusion can easily play up to some of these teams, and I think we need to start respecting that. And Seoul Dynasty, they took a loss to the Dragons, but again, it's the Dragons, and it was a lot closer than the 3-0 would otherwise suggest.
And I've called this matchup in the past, this rivalry, as a spaghetti bowl in an endearing way. and really an endearing way, because especially this year, both teams have looked a lot more solid compared to previous, seasons of the Overwatch League, especially for the Seoul Dynasty. Now that they actually have a title under their belt, their first ever title in their organization's history, Fusion still left wanting for that one. That's why the Kickoff Clash final was so great, because somebody had to win, right? It was such a legendary matchup and rivalry leading into it. So it does kind of continue, because these two teams, I think it's 8-5 is the overall record between them, favoring Seoul. But this year so far, 2-1, or rather 3-1. Could they extend that one further? In the past, in 2021, it's gone 2-2, so Fusion were a lot closer that year. But now, with Fusion sort of looking a lot more dangerous, catching up, I mean, that 3-2 victory that Seoul Dynasty got over Fusion, that's one that I think Seoul are probably not too pleased with. They probably would have enjoyed a much cleaner game. And for Fusion, I don't think they can be too upset about that either. They still managed to qualify by beating Hangzhou, and they took a very close game to Seoul, which now they can rectify by beating Seoul, if they can do that. First map going to be Nepal.
Already, very interesting start here, I think. Nepal, you know, we look at some of these control maps, and I think a lot of the discussion around this map starter, especially in this meta, is that there's not as much of a difference generally when you talk about the different control maps, but I think that when you start to take into account the playstyle differences that these teams are going to have, especially now that you talk about the mixed bag that Fusion can often be, especially when we've really had limited looks at MN3 being a part of this as well, that could very drastically change the way that Fusion play. I think Seoul Dynasty versus Fusion, getting a good read here in this first map is going to be pivotal for how the rest of this series could go.
Alright, we'll see how it breaks down, because the Seoul Dynasty did lose the opening Oasis to Philadelphia Fusion in their last matchup. Again, 3-2 victory for Seoul, but they dropped the opening Oasis. They did pick up the final Busan map, so control going both ways, 1-1 apiece. Fitz starting out here on the Sojin, or not the Sojin, the Ashe rather, and it's going to be Sojin for MN3. Smurf already taking a bit of damage. Both teams have now popped the commanding shouts. Seoul Dynasty kind of locked up in the lobby though. They need to break on out, and out they come. For Zest, both Genji's trying to create some damage, and Zest falls first.
Looks like Fusion can actually back off here at least a little bit, and they need to. They don't want to give away too much ult charge. I mean, once you lose a fight like that, you lose control early, and you're also kind of giving this slow push over to the Dynasty where they're going to get even more of a lead here, on top of the fact that they're playing the Ashe. So getting set up defensively here is going to bode well for them as things move forward. I think that's probably the main concern if I'm Fusion.
Like you need to have good sight lines for Fitz, as well as, you know, defendable angles. I think the difficulty of playing Ashe in this meta is that it's a lot easier to flank an Ashe and just get on top of an Ashe, whereas, you know, Sojin has a lot more to play with in her kit. I think the disruptor shot, importantly, will kind of make things difficult for a Genji, and also the burst potential of the Sojin is so much higher as well. So Fitz might be playing a little bit uphill if he's not too careful. Vindame gets away with his life. Zest didn't have the dash available to go on in to find the execution. Point though might just get capped over, is contested. Have to be careful about that one. Soul can't let that one go away for free. Blaze should be coming up soon as well. Stalker on 95. Stalker already just gets a kill on the Fixer, so it might not even matter here. Prophet needs to be a little bit careful to not die with the rally. Soul Dynasty 3 versus 2. Okay, that got a little bit tricky. MN3 popped up with 2 shots there, Herix, but it will still go the way of Soul Dynasty. They retain the cap, they retain most of their players alive. MN3 got tricky, but Soul Dynasty don't lose.
And it's interesting to see how these fights take place too, because this is certainly a much slower tempo than what we just had in our previous matchup. We're seeing pressure definitely getting placed down upon Dynasty, but they're not utilizing a lot of their resources to stabilize. They're allowing their team to kind of sit at about half HP, and then once Fusion commits, that's when they do as well.
Okay, here's the committal now. MN3 going in. So Bob responds to the opposite end. I believe just got booped back slightly, and now booped off the map. So Fury will just take care of the Bob. Goodbye. Stalker, low HP, wants to pull blade. They're playing patiently here, they being Seoul Dynasty. They still have point control, but now the swaps and the trades, rather, will come on through. 4 versus 3, Blade to save the day. Zest needs to get something good done out of here, because with Fixer gone and Aim God dead, there's just no supports, and it's final fight territory. Seoul Dynasty might just get a 100-0 finish as Zest. He needs to do a lot more on that Blade, but he just can't, because the supports of Seoul Dynasty keeps everybody up. Final Rampage from Smurf goes across. Fixer, I believe that was an Ajax, unlucky. And 100-0 has been found, but even had Fixer dropped in the sound barrier, I don't know that it would have made a difference.
Yeah, desperate investment there for Fusion. I mean, forced because of the fact that Dynasty was just on top of them. As soon as we saw Dynasty win out that neutral engagement, they were just easily in control, and I think a lot of that certainly determined by the fact that their cooldown usage is just so effective against this playstyle that Fusion are trying to go for, where they're out pressuring, constantly trying to find that opening. You can see Zest trying to invest in finding that execution like we saw between Choi and Who Are You, but Dynasty, they're the team that is playing that disengaged style, where they're looking to absorb that pressure, and then once Fusion commits, they still have resources, they still have cooldowns, despite their health bar not seeming like they do. They do.
And Fitz was well protected there as well. He had 0 deaths, as well as Smurf having 0 deaths on that first opening round, 100-0. So, you know, you know it's difficult for you when your Ashe is kind of struggling in that matchup, is not being defended well. But Fitz was just kind of free-firing for the most part, which is what you want out of Fitz in that specific situation. Into our second round though, bunch of damage being taken by Seoul Dynasty, but return in the case, and look at that. I mean, despite Stalker dashing in for the kill to Aim God, it will be Fitz finding him, as well as Zest, and Once again, the Seoul Dynasty getting a very early cleanup onto the Philadelphia Fusion and barely a response. I think Stalker's the only death so far, and he'll remain the only death in the first fight.
Really good start here for Seoul Dynasty, and I think that's, again, why I try to play down the notion that Seoul Dynasty is for some reason fizzling out, because we saw them take one loss against the Shanghai Dragons, and they dropped the map as well. Well, so this is still Seoul Dynasty, and they're here to stay. It seems like they're still one of those top teams in this region, but Philadelphia Fusion, they have to turn up the heat right here and right now. It's another potentially neutral fight, obviously positional control to Dynasty, but has to find a pick here, Fusion, to be able to move forward.
Yeah, and it's been, 130% worth, I'm including Sanctum as well, where Fusion haven't won a fight yet, so this entire opening has been pretty dangerous. Saw Stalker deflect the railgun shot, but for MN3's sake, thankfully not back into his own head. But a struggling here from Fusion to be able to walk on full. They really are trying to rely on MN3 to maybe find an opening, and there it is. They get what they wanted. Seoul Dynasty now down by 1. Philadelphia Fusion can finally walk on 4. Can they get more? They will get more, but Zest gets punished. So it's still a 4v3. Support ultimate's about to come online. MN3 converts onto a further member, and MN3 is just popping up. 3 kills so far, make it 4. The rails have been phenomenal here. MN3, he's got about to have the overclock already.
And remember too, MN3 came in kind of late in the season as well. Got injected in here to try to find some other way for the Fusion, and it seems to have worked. I mean, between MN3 and Zest, they feel so fluid together, like they really have something there. And now we can see in control, especially with the overclock, can they find picks against the double support ults that Dynasty have?
We'll find out, because the first couple of rails are now firing on through, and they really want Smurf down. Shout's already been used. Prophet trying to keep the players up via the rallies. Extra sound barrier still being held on to. Vindane wants to save that one for Zest, who does take a bit of damage, and MN3 just deletes Prophet. Goodbye, out of the server. 5 versus 4. MN3's rails continue to find value in this round so far on Shrine. The Seoul Dynasty, they look like they're just going to back on out. They need 5.
They have to. Prophet down. On top of that, a big trade for Fusion. They're getting back in control here. Great investment, great pick there as well.
This is just, it's never ending. MN3 just keeps piling on the damage of the Seoul Dynasty. And the Seoul Dynasty consistently at a 4 versus 5 in these last couple of fights and engages. And look at the economy as well here. Xfury's about to get this rampage. It's about to be 4 lights online. Look, Seoul also have about 4 ultimates coming in. But unless they can get past MN3 on the rotation, it's just looking bad for Seoul. They have plenty to play through here, so opportunity on board. MN3 down. Fitz gets his revenge. It's been such an important member to get down early. Fixer low HP, still waiting to pop the sound barrier. Vindame already popped. Smurf coming through the rampage in just a hot second, and Zest has his blade shut down. Stalker still slashing. Takes down Aimgun. No more rally available. Fixer did in that fight as well. No chance to pop the sound barrier, and the Seoul Dynasty off the back of killing MN3 early from Fitz's rail will get the job done.
Huge win for them, obviously getting that first pick. That's pivotal. It set things up so well for them, because now you talk about the reward. Well, Fusion has sound barrier, but they invested 3 ultimates into a fight that they then lost. And now Dynasty, if they win this next one, that could clear it. They could go 2-0 here as long as they remain vigilant and composed.
And this one looks so much better for the Fusion, but still you have to get past Seoul in a position of defending here with Smurf coming up towards the rampage. Again, Fixer held on to sound barrier, didn't get to use it last fight. Could be important here. That's another deflected rail, but again doesn't go into MN3. It's Fitz to pull the overclock. Fixer just sound barriers, can't afford to lose it there. Smurf can now wait for the rampage to find maximum value. It does only get the 1. I believe he was booped in there, but they can still get that kill. Prophet and Smurf are low HP. Fury as well quite low, but Zest falling first. Vindame gets that kill. Seoul Dynasty is 99%. They can finish this one right here and now. MN3 trying to put a stop to Seoul. MN3 trying to save the day. Extra rally from Prophet to come on through. Its low HP for Seoul. MN3 though, he's struggling to find these kills. He's struggling to find the picks, and Fitz is now in towards his face. Seoul Dynasty, they're about to get this one. If Fusion can't find any responses, they can't even touch. They can't even touch. Zest tried, didn't get there.
Unfortunate way for Fusion to kind of fizzle out on that first map, but either way, I think they have found a way to adapt to this. I think a lot of that is done through MN3 just being able to click people's heads, much the same like we saw from, Lip in the last series. But either way, anything that you can find, any value that you can attribute to getting some fight wins under your belt and actually establishing yourself in this series is something you're going to do. And I think that's a big reason why Fusion invested into MN3 and even more so invested in him now more than ever, because he's able to turn the tides of a series just slightly, but still, of course, we have to kind of set expectations as they should be, and that Dynasty, they're still a top team, and they've established that yet again.
Yeah, despite MN3's heroics on that second round, right, it just wasn't quite enough. That I think 4K from MN3 was one of the better lines of, sequences in terms of highlight from a Sojourn play that we've seen so far. It was just really beautiful to see. But you need a lot more from the Fusion. You need the rest of the players being able to match up there as well. Very slow game, very slow start for Zest, who you normally expect to be in that carry position. Have to see if Zest and the rest of Fusion can bounce back on map number 2. That will be their pick as well. But for now, we'll take a bit of a break. See you soon. Well, I have some good news here, Herix. Fixer did, in fact, not Ajax on that first round, but unfortunately the bad news is it still ends up in a 2-0, so it doesn't really help either way, whether the beat lands or not there for the Philadelphia Fusion. A rough play to start, I believe it was 100-0 on Sanctum. A lot closer on that second round, 80+ accumulated. I think maybe even 90 there for Fusion, but, you know, M3 can only do so much for the team.
Yeah, I think certainly the rest of Fusion's going to have to step up, and I think they're more than capable of doing just that. As we've seen already, this is a varying degree of pacing and tempo. Obviously, in our last series, we saw things really, really high octane, just running each other down, trying to find those opening picks. Initially, things were slowed down. Seoul really kind of helped to dictate things in that fashion. Of course, a lot of that comes down to the fact that they were simply just using fits on an Ashe, so they needed to do that. But then once it came down to the mirror, a lot more chaotic, and I think that's where Fusion, once they start to establish some better comfort in this series as a whole, and they start getting a download on, okay, what is Dynasty doing well? Because they've been doing it well throughout the entirety of this stage. What could we do to start mitigating some of the efforts that they're doing? And then also, how can we enable Zest in particular? Because obviously MN3 is doing what he's doing already. Now it's time to get Zest involved again, as we know he can.
I've got a couple of stat lines as well from that previous map that I think are quite a bit telling. MN3 obviously did, as you'd expect, he got the largest amount of final blows on his team by quite a fair margin, by the way. It goes 10 for MN3, and then 2 for Zest, and then, you know, 1 for Fury, etc. So it's like 10 and then 2. It's quite a large gap there. So Zest, unfortunately, just couldn't quite get too much done on the Genji, but also across the board, the damage was there for Philly Fusion. They only did about 260 less damage as an entire team of 5 compared to Seoul Dynasty, who only hit by that amount. And yep, they were down by 9 final blows. So the Seoul Dynasty were ahead by 9 total final blows, while only being ahead by 260 damage overall. That really says to me that Fusion kind of struggled to clean up members there. There was also a lot more healing done by the Seoul Dynasty, so they're low HP. They're in a position where they could die, but then they get healed back up, they disengage well, and they don't lose members.
Yeah, I think a lot of that damage just came in pre-fight for Fusion before everything really could stick, whereas Dynasty, again, they held their cooldowns, they were looking for that pivot, and they're doing that again here as well. You can see them kind of posturing up onto the high ground, and again, utilizing fits on the Ashe. They want Fusion to come forward at them.
Yeah, this is really a lot of Fitz Ashe that we're seeing today, and I think Hollywood, you'll probably remember for 2021, was a lot of Fitz Ashe fighting value as well, so replicating some of that performance through. Seoul Dynasty, though, already on towards the point. Fusion are giving up a lot of space here. Fury, obviously low HP, had to back on out. The shard expended. Vindame could be the first target. No one cleaning him up. There it is. Fix will find a very wayward headshot, but you take those. You take this for sure. It's one tick, regardless for Seoul, whether it's win or lose. But they haven't been quite cleaned up. Sorka will get a trade onto Aim God. Won't be enough for Seoul to get further than that, though. Fusion have the player advantage, and they will capitalize on said player advantage. But like I also mentioned here, there is one tick given away.
And of course as well, I mean, you talk about shout timings. That's one of the harder things to see, because one of the best ways to see it is if you could just barely make it out in the top left or top right of your screen, or you hear it. But that really favored Fusion there. They had a great timing mid-fight that they were able to just establish their dominance once they got slightly ahead, and it helped stabilize them as well. Now, looking forward, I'm expecting Dynasty to kind of temper that aggression just a tad. Remember, they still have fits on the Ashe, so they want to poke out Fusion as much as possible.
And they nearly got the second tick here as well. Fusion have to respond very quickly. Zest to build the blade. They'll have the earlier sound barrier as well. That's very important because Vindame is far away. Stalker is still a reasonable length away as well from receiving his own ultimate. Fusion can pull the trigger or pull the blade at any point here, and they might be forced to 2 ticks. They'll give it away. Fusion just giving the objectives to the Seoul Dynasty. Push does need to come to shove here. Double rallies pulled on through. Smurf is the lead. What's going on there? Smurf went very far forward, and Seoul could not support him up. M3 takes down Fitz, and with the blade coming in through, Zest will finally get a kill. It's enough for the Philadelphia Fusion to win another fight, but here is a second tick given away.
Yeah, I think Fusion certainly would like to have at least that back, but you can see them pushing up a little bit farther forward. They know that Seoul Dynasty is building some of their ultimates, but they may not be quite there yet, so it's time to go.
Fitz is low, Fitz is down. MN3 pulls that trigger on the overclock straight away. This is a bold strategy coming through from the Philadelphia Fusion. They want to get very aggressive, and MN3 unfortunately goes a little bit too far up. He was out of the LOS of all of his healers, and Smurf will now claim Aim God as well. This is Philly being punished. I think Seoul will cap from here. Absolutely. too many players from fully down, and this is the disengaged start. Look, by the way, the ultimates here, Seoul don't even have to ult. They already got 2 ticks. They're going to cap.
All just came from an overextension there, and I think that's why we, when we talk about Philly Fusion, it's really hard to get a good feed on where they're at, because when they're playing well, they're playing very well. But sometimes there's just those little things that happen that other teams can take advantage of, like Seoul Dynasty, and of course, like Shanghai Dragons as well.
I just don't think you can afford to kiss the spawn doors there, right? I mean, MN3 biting a lot more off than he can chew for sure. And if you are Fusion, if you're going to lose A, you want to burn ultimates off of Dynasty. Here you're going to get another first pick. Brilliant to see. Seoul Dynasty, though, send out the Bob. This is now opportunity for Seoul to just buy a bit of time, regroup together. Okay, it costs you an entire Bob, but it makes sure that no one else dies. Okay, I'm lying, actually, because Zez just kills. I was going to say 2, but one of them is the Bob. I don't know how Stalker got caught there, but it's enough. And now Seoul Dynasty are left hurting a lot, because originally they spend a Bob to disengage without dying. Now they just die anyway.
Yeah, that's a huge win, actually, for Fusion. It reestablishes their control, on top of the fact that I don't know where popular opinion lies on this, but Bob actually a really solid ult right now in this meta, genuinely. And to be able to pull that out and still get the fight when you don't have to invest your resources to be able to do that, that's great. Now you can start matching going forward.
Yeah.
You're down to 2 minutes. It looks better for Fusion now.
I got a lot of mixed feelings about Bob, because you can sort of displace the Bob quite easy with multiple different boops here, even the Jagged Blade. And also Soju can use the Bob to either burn it or just charge a rail, right? You can just charge a rail off the Bob, which is pretty good. In either case, Rampage, Sound Barrier to counter, probably looking for the rally next. Sound Barrier from Fixer now to match, and Stalker's turn to Blade. 0 targets are not very rich in terms of a target environment. In Seoul Dynasty, they have a very good Rampage that gets Fury down and got low, but again, the extra rally healing will come on through. It's not enough to save Fixer, and the Fusion are falling over. They just can't quite do enough damage to secure kills. That's been the story of our opening map in Nepal, and now deep into Hollywood. Smurf, critical HP, doesn't die. Seoul Dynasty, they continue pushing forward.
Not a lot of time, though, left, so of course, when you look at this and you see Philly Fusion has Zest with an opportunity to actually step into the spotlight. I mean, how much have we talked about him already, and the fact that he needs to stand out the way that we're used to seeing him do it? Well, this is the best opportunity he's going to have. No ults online for Dynasty. They're probably already going to have to invest their shout. They do.
Yeah, the shouts already have been in play there. Fury gets Smurf down, so with a bit of help from Zest's Blade, the damage has been good. That's the only kill they have so far, but it might be the only kill they need. They do push back the Philly Fusion, fix a great boop onto Fitz, will secure a secondary, and this will allow the Fusion to walk on forward. Stalker's life is obviously going to go forfeited. This stage, Fusion could actually go for the spawn camp if they want to, but they'll refrain. I think part of that reason might be because the payload is very far up.
Yeah, I think if you go for it there, you might afford yourself an opportunity to still go for a contest, but instead they like the high ground here. They can control the drop, they can control the timing of this fight, and I think that's more important to them, especially given the fact that MN3 does have his ult. Oh, they've lost Fix-Up.
That's not what you want to see. Fusion's defense now solely relies on the success of this overclock. They'll allow a bit of space to be given away. Fixer will return. They desperately need a 5 versus 5 here, and MN3 biding his time to pull through the ultimate. The Bob also comes to play. Stalker, he gets another opening pick. He got Fixer before, gets MN3 now, but it's so much more impactful to kill MN3. 5 versus 4, no more overclock available. Fury falls as well, and the rest of Fusion will get cleaned on up. Bob even making an appearance in the kill feed, and Seoul get the cap. Stalker with 2 important kills to lead the fight.
And this one kind of feels stolen away from Fusion as well. I mean, they did such a good job in those first 2 sections of the map, but now Dynasty are moving into the final phase here. And granted, yes, the time bank doesn't look great, but it seems like they're doing their best work when their backs are against the wall and the overtime wick is burning down.
Yeah.
Of course, you look at the Blade here, available for Stalker, and Fusion, the timing does not look good for them here. They're not going to have the sound barrier to answer, but they're going forward anyways.
Well, Fitz could die here. It does get saved by the Cookie, as we saw from long distance. Courtesy of Prophet, who now goes down. It's both Brigidas on the floor so far, but it's so much more damage done by Stalker. Look at the beauty of this Blade. He just gets the damage through, and Fusion can do nothing about it. They already lost their healers. Vin Dame getting active in the kill feed. It's a full 5-0 wipe at Seoul Dynasty off the back of a single Blade. Continue pushing through unimpeded.
Snowballing through now. I mean, momentum is in Seoul's favor, and on top of that, they were able to bide enough time here with 20 seconds left. They have both their support ults. They could go 1-1, but they have to find kills quick. Otherwise, you give that respawn advantage to Fusion.
Well, Vindame has to be careful here because both Rampage and Blade are available. Here comes the Blade now. Zest needs a lot of kills here. Soundbarrier has been popped by both of the Lucio players. Fury now climbs on through Smurf. Basically has Rampage cancelled. Yes, in fact, it is cancelled by the Rampage of Fury. It's final fight territory anyway. Soul try to do all that they can, but with Fusion's 4-man, I believe, Rampage by Fury, and some extra damage done by Zest there as well. Seoul Dynasty will finally lose a critical fight that ends the push. However, Herix, take a look at that payload positioning.
Yeah, not bad. I mean, it's basically the end of the map, just a couple of meters away. So, yeah, they weren't going to finish with any time left, but hey, at least they get pretty much all the way there, and certainly feel for the Dynasty there, especially Vindame had an impossible task dealing with 2 ultimates that he was basically in charge of trying to deal with. Not ever going to go in your favor. Fusion could kind of space those out a little bit, especially given the fact that they know that they have their respawn right behind them. If they lose one player, they can still turn that back around and get the award of just getting value out of one of those ults at the very least, but they got both. So that does well for them at least, but they have at least now a good spot to go, okay, we had a great defense. Seoul Dynasty, yeah, they snuck a couple through us, but we look great in the team fights, and all we have to do is complete the map and we can take this one home.
Yeah, well, maybe that'll be easier said than done. You know, plenty of teams have fallen by the weight of the pressure of we just need to complete the map. And Seoul Dynasty, they look like they nearly did not even cap A. You know, there are still some mixed feelings about how that A-point defense could have gone for Fusion had they not played risky. I don't mind that they ambushed Seoul Dynasty by sort of hiding the corner there, but taking it all the way to the spawn, certainly not what you want to see out of Fusion, and maybe that could have been an 8-point hold. Who knows? Will that be an alternate timeline and the multiverse that we'll never sort of get to see? Fits on the Ash for the defense here as well. So again, Seoul lost a lot of time on A. They're going to need to burn a lot of time off of Fusion as well because, you know, easier said than done to cap, but still very capable. I think this is a winnable map for Fusion.
Yeah, all about, for Dynasty at least, just controlling. Just buy time, play this like you did on Sanctum. That's what they want to accomplish here. That's why they have Fitz back on the Ash for this objective here.
Fury's in a lot of pain here. He might actually just go down. That's critical HP for Fury indeed. Shout being extended here. Stalker is actually being caught. He's gone right in deep, but it's a 1-for-1 trade so far. 2 for 2 now. Seoul Dynasty saw 3 alive, but they have given up the point. Fusion is starting to cap. They got the first take underway. Fusion can't afford to chase these kills, so we're about to have some respawners coming back, and both teams have pretty equal respawn distances here. And as Seoul Dynasty regroup, they will stop the second tick from coming in, and both teams back on out.
Yep. Of course, Seoul Dynasty just loving the fact that they got their Junker Queen out of that situation and stole the kill onto Fury as well so that they could reestablish their positioning here at least a little bit. But the big thing is that Fitz, I don't know if he's really in the greatest spot right now as things are already breaking out. They're diving for him.
Oh. Low HP members, it's the supports that M3 wants, but Stalker finds his kill first and foremost. Now Stalker continues, 2-for-1 trade so far. Fusion down to very critical members here. Fixer will save the Sound Barrier. They know they lost this fight for sure. Fury at least takes down Fitz, but I don't know if there's going to be a valuable enough timing for the Philadelphia Fusion to actually use that. I'm pretty sure that Fitz will be on his way back and well before either Fixer and Fury can regroup their team. So it's a good effort, but this time Seoul Dynasty get a far cleaner fight win.
You can see as well, Seoul Dynasty have that Bob coming up, and I mentioned before that I like the value in that ult, and this is one of the reasons why. If you can send that onto the back wall, and I think, Fusion actually, I think, expect this to happen, so they're going the back route through the alleyway and might deny some of the value here by just LOSing it. It's gone.
The bombs in Narnia currently is just completely out of the map, and well, maybe the Bob's out of there, but the Fusion trying to rush into the Seoul Dynasty. It's still a 5-0 sweep, and by the way, Bob being the only ultimate. They don't even need to use any other ultimates, so we'll just forget about the Bob, because well, the Fusion did, and Seoul did Seoul.
And I mean, incredibly smart rotation still, though, because they could very easily use some of the map geometry, some of those boxes on the backside of the point to just mitigate the value there. Unfortunately for them, they just ran headfirst into their own death. And now Seoul Dynasty, you look at Fitz, he just used Bob, he's up at 50%, the rest of the ults are still online, so Dynasty kind of got away for free on that.
And I think the other value of the Bob is it does charge fairly quickly off the back of Dynamites, and we'll see if that happens again very quickly as Rally comes on through, M3 trying to find value on this overclock, but currently isn't able to select any targets. Smurf is at least low, but not dead, so the Stalker running on in. Stalker does not get saved by anything. The Vindame sound barrier comes in fairly late, fixes sound barrier first, obviously to block up the blade, and Zest is still alive. He's still killing. He's got everybody now. Has Fitz in his sights as well. Just another okay, apparently not. Fitz gets how does Fitz win that 1v1? It might not be enough for the Seoul Dynasty to hold on, as it's just Vindame alive. The Fusion, the extra sound barrier from Fixer, Vindame not saving Stalker, I think that could have been the difference.
Timing key there, though. I mean, Seoul Dynasty not going to have short spawn, so they're not going to be able to move up to that high ground. Instead, Zest can actually take that away for them, at least for the time being. Allow Fusion to get through this choke pretty safely here, again, as long as they're not getting picked out. But once again, Bob coming online, Fusion did a great job of rotating away. They still died, but as long as they kind of keep that at the forefront of their mind, they can do that again here. There's a lot of opportunity to line of sight away from the bomb.
Oh! Yeah, that's one opportunity right there. How about just delete the Fitz Ash before the bomb can even become a factor? Now, Seoul Dynasty can just disengage here, or rather they can just play the high ground, wait for Fitz to come on back. Fusion can't really aggress on. I mean, Zest will do a little bit of the extra damage via the dash. When Fitz comes back, though, that's when the fight really starts, and I think Bob will need to almost pop that instantly.
M3, great position, working the flank. There's the Bob invested. Fusion, can they get away?
Doesn't look like it, at least not for AimGod. Maybe the rest of them could still make it through. It's an expensive way to regain payload control, but again, we discussed this in our previous series. I think it ends up being worth it. Bob doesn't take too long for Fitz to build on up, and using the Bob straight away means it allows the Seoul Dynasty to instantly engage. Fusion don't want to borrow it. They lose a player, they will go back and regroup. And now a bit of a high ground stalemate, as Fusion have to be the ones to break the stalemate. They need to get the push on again, and it's Fury with the Rampage where Smurf doesn't have it.
Oh, I love the way that Zest is working this as well. This is just Zest's position alone means that Fusion can force their way across the bridge and push down Dynasty. They're forced onto the low ground. Fusion can now take this fight more aggressively and with at least a little bit of favor, but I think they want to wait for their sound barrier. That's what their go button is going to be. Once Fixa gets that, they can make another contest.
And Vindame is 21% off here as well. Prophet's going to have to pop this as a pre-rally at any point now, as M3 is going to force the issue. This is the overclock to find the kills required. Smurf got quite a bit of HP damage and all that now promptly be taken down. Seoul Dynasty so far not been able to really respond. Stalker gets just the one. And despite Prophet actually piling in the rally, it does not help the Seoul Dynasty enough. Fusion off of M3 pushing on in, and Fury using the Rampage. They get the required kills. Maybe not looking for a few stragglers left behind. Seoul have all regrouped. Nobody got a bad spawn.
Yeah, I think one of the main things I'm looking for here with Zest having this blade, with the positioning here from Dynasty, wanting to have an explosive start to this fight. Instead, Fusion back away, but again, rally with the blade, Seoul Dynasty, it's all about forcing Zest's deflect. If they can do that, they can mitigate the pressure there, they can push through the overhealth supplied by the rally, and Dynasty can regain control defensively.
Comes above now, blade as well, coming through from a Stalker, and it's just all kills the way of the Seoul Dynasty. Not a single response. Smurf gets 3 of them, and Fusion could be a risk of being spawn camped here. I mean, usually when you see a defensive team kind of just get a 5-0 wipe, they can play very aggressively, and Seoul's positioning, it's right up there. It's not quite kissing the spawn doors, but it is, you know, quite a fair bit up.
And I think with that fight there too, yes, they give away some of their opportunity to get the deflect out from Zest, but they still have sound barrier to answer. They still have Rampage coming up as well, so Dynasty, I think, still in a good position despite utilizing 2 of their offensive weapons in that last fight.
And this is where Fusion come in and reclaim all the space, right? Put the pressure onto Stalker, who got low HP there. Zest would have probably have gone deeper, but he got hit by Dynamite. So the stalemate continues, but Fusion are okay with this one because they are the ones pushing up, and we remind ourselves they just have to finish the map here. There is not going to be a time bank. 43 seconds to get it done. The sound barrier is available for Vindame to counter out Zest's blade. Zest has to be the linchpin here to get the party started. We are getting into the position now where Fusion have to pull the trigger. And here it comes. Zest's half HP. Smurf with the Rampage on the opposite end. Zest is currently slashing a lot of air with Fury down. Seoul have all but locked up this fight. Time is getting critical here. Fusion have to regroup quickly.
going to make it a little bit easier for Evan 3 because he's going right back to the spawn, and now Sound Barrier available, but
who's touching?
It's not going to be an offensive weapon, and someone does have to touch because look, Rampage is still going to be there, so Fusion are not going to get much value out of Sound Barrier.
Zest is recalled, so they got to go for this now. They have the basic Sound Barrier and go for it. Zest is down, and they can't quite get... Okay, there is going to be a touch involved. The Rampage cuts through all of Philadelphia Fusion, or at least two important members there. Sound Barrier to block through a bunch of damage. Profit is keeping the team healthy, and the Fusion caught between going for the objective, trying to stay alive. Zest getting taken down early, and the final fight is all but gone. The chances of the Fusion have been wiped out of Hollywood, and we said it right from the start there. Philadelphia Fusion finishing the map, easier said than done. 40 seconds left to try and get it done, but it was just too difficult. The Zest Blade versus Vindame Sound Barrier fight had to go the way of Fusion. It did not, and then they were caught in spawn.
All came down to ultimate efficiency there as well. Towards the end, it felt like, the timing that we saw between those two as well, especially when you consider the fact that Seoul really kind of had a rocky start to their attack as well. I mean, remember, they kind of finished the map. I mean, certainly a couple meters away, but they were right there. But Fusion was just so on the defense as well. I mean, they almost held on point A, they almost held on point B, and it really came to a close at the end on point C, and Fusion just couldn't get that same distance covered. I think they want that one back in a big way.
Yeah, I go back towards the A, right? The overextension. Who knows what could have happened in the multiversal timelines, but we won't get to discover that. The good news for Fusion is there is still another map to be played. They are still in a position to pick that one. We'll have to find out what that is after this break. Welcome back to the Overwatch League here. Seoul versus Fusion, currently 2-0 up. Well, the Seoul Dynasty match point has been locked up here, and for the Philly Fusion, you know, it's a competitive map. Not so much on to Nepal, especially on that first round, but as we moved along, it has been more and more competitive, but not quite enough to get Fusion a map just yet.
Yeah, not just yet. Certainly looking a lot better over time while we progress through this series. I think Fusion, they could be very, very much, you know, moments away at this stage. And certainly as we progress forward now, where we're at 2-0, I mean, every map that we see from here on out, whether it be one or several, is going to be still Fusion's map selection. And I think that certainly can help them along the way. But still, you're down 2 maps. Now you're talking about a reverse sweep. And I know I shouldn't say it out loud or it won't happen. But either way, Fusion, while they do look good, it just is a little bit short at this stage against Dynasty.
And I feel like it's, you know, it sort of betrays the previous result a little bit as well, because when you look back at the regular season game in the final week, despite Fusion losing to Seoul, it was a 3-2 win for Seoul, meaning that Fusion actually had the 2 maps in there, and they actually had the 2 maps first. It was 2-1 after Circuit Royale, which will, by the way, also be our next map coming up, selected by the Philly Fusion. Fusion were at a match point versus the Seoul Dynasty in that, you know, Week 18 game. And they sort of allowed 2 maps to go the way of Seoul Dynasty, and they lost the ability to win that series. And here, it's just a very different feeling, right? Because instead of a commanding position and a leading position for Fusion, they are so far down.
One thing I do like about this map, though, especially given the fact that it's Fusion's choice to actually take us here, is the fact that on this map, it feels like, while more often than not, we're seeing Genji's kind of command the team, at least to a degree. Obviously, main tank is probably the most dominant factor of this composition, but Genji plays a very pivotal role. However, on this map, you're seeing a little bit of the hit scan DPS role, or rather the Sojourn specifically, get a little bit of an increase in value, and especially when you have a player like MN3 doing what MN3 has been doing, I think that does help you out at least a little bit, to have MN3 be able to kind of impact this match more so than he is already even.
And he has been, I think, the primary carry of the Philly Fusion so far in this particular matchup, right? Obviously was the case on Nepal by a big margin, as described from the statistics outlined after that map concluded. Fitz will, I think, predictably start out on the Ashe here. Whether he remains on the Ashe will be questioned. He is the kind of player that likes to continue playing the Ashe, but at the same time, you know, we've seen both Lip and Jimmy, they start on the Ashe, then swap a little bit towards Sojourn. Breaking past the opening spawn hold is what's important, and a bunch of Philly members are already quite low here. Smurf, though, taking a bunch of damage. He's probably target number 1 and already cleaned up.
Should be nice and efficient here for Fusion. One thing, though, that they want to make sure of is that when we do see players like Aim God, for example, getting low, like we saw in that last fight, if things go the way of Aim God falling out, that means Fusion has to back up and they have to give up this spawn camp that is certainly going to be testing Dynasty. So Fusion, they can continue to look for these picks, but they have to make sure that they stay composed, especially in their backline. That's key.
Well, Fusion can't really afford to lose any members here, right? So that opening shout that's already been used by Fury helps keep them healthy, maybe even disengage. Fury, though, still just really far up. He couldn't quite get away. They do trade out the 2 Junker Queens, but this is still, I would say, going the way of Seoul Dynasty. Seoul might lose this fight, but the respawns matter here. Seoul are going to get their respawns very quickly, and they're going to break out.
And that's exactly what I was kind of getting into, right? The fact that they did lose some bodies, the respawn is right there. Fusion should have to back up here, which means that Dynasty, while they didn't win the fight, they still get the value of winning the fight, which is pushing that payload forward, starting to progress this cart, and getting into a better place for them to fight, because you definitely don't want to be attached to your spawn at any stage of this map.
We'll still say that's a fairly, I think, successful spawn camp from Fusion, given about a minute 30 was shaved off the clock. You also have a very early sound barrier. Now Prophet and Vendame low gets cleaned up. There it is, M3 and Zest, the 2 DPS players of the Fusion, getting active in the kill feed, and Stalker should be falling next. And the spawn camp can continue now, because here's the other problem here, is if you do win this 5-0 on the defense, you can just walk forward.
Yeah, now you can go right back to everything that Seoul Dynasty doesn't want to be a part of. You can go back and spawn camp yet again, start taking resources from Dynasty, where, you know, even if Dynasty wins a fight, if they invest a resource early to win it, then they don't have that for the card.
They have to bob, and they do bob, and now the sound barriers and the support ultimates, Aim God might have to rally here as well, start to come on through. It's very hard, though, I think, to pop extra ultimates if you have Fusion, because if you try and Blade, Dynasty can just go back on their spawn, so you have to be considerate of what you use here as the Fusion. You are trying to get some ultimates out of Seoul Dynasty, and one of those will now be the Blade. Stalker's trying his best. The rally from Aim God is keeping most players alive, but Stalker doesn't care. He'll even get the Mega Pack. He'll get his third kill in the fight now, looking for 4 and 5. Smoke cleans it up, and Fusion, they lose everything. It's hard. Zest and M3 even pulled ultimates, but it's just too late.
Huge blade there from Stalker. I mean, when you look across the board, massive investment from both sides, and Seoul Dynasty had to win that there. There's a minute left on the clock. There's just simply not much opportunity left to build some of these resources back up before you run out of time. So getting that win means you can get forward, you can go Rampage versus Rampage, and take yet another fight where you're going to rely on your, I mean, really anyone on the team to step up and find some kind of opening, and I think Fury may be the one that they're going to go for here.
And this might be a hot take, but I think Fusion should have just lost that fight, not used ultimates, and been in a better economic situation now. As maybe they'll wish they had that, but they'll have the one ultimate at least to use. It's looking pretty good so far. Smurf survived, so he'll pop out the Rampage. Not quite as good as Fury's, and the Soul results in just a 1-for-1 trade so far. M3 ticking down, survive. He didn't actually bleed out, and Fusion have the extra members surviving that they can continue holding. Seoul Dynasty lose the fight with critical time remaining, less than 10 seconds. A late death on a Stalker. Fitz is going to go towards the Sombra just to enable a touch. Smurf on the ball now. I don't think it's going to work even if they can touch. Fusion have 5 alive, and Seoul Dynasty waiting for respawners. Time runs out here. It's a successful A-point hold. It's a full hold.
I mean, what a turnaround, too, for Fusion. I mean, something that they were so close to achieving on Hollywood. Now they actually get the job done. And remember, despite the fact that this is a 2-0 right now for Dynasty, that last map was dangerously close. I mean, Dynasty, like I said, in that last map in Hollywood, they kind of snuck away with some points that Fusion really could have, with minor changes, shut them down early, and then they clearly, with their attack, probably had the pacing to just take that one away. So now with this hold here, this could be a major point in this series for Fusion. This is probably that potential pivot if there ever was going to be one.
And I think historically as well, when you look across the Fusion's results so far this year, see if Aim God has a... Mary does indeed have a little land. Right, well, as the concert continues, he's been practicing. He looks very focused here. Yeah, I was going to say that historically, this has been one of the better maps for Fusion. They've been very good on Circuit Royale. Nice ending there. Circuit Royale in the history of all their games, and especially in sniper metas where M3 has been able to play the Widowmaker. In fact, this was one of the pivotal maps in Fusion beating Seoul Dynasty in the MSM qualifiers as well, when M3 probably had one of the best individual performances that we've seen out of any player so far this season. Seoul Dynasty are obviously going to go for their own spawn camp here. M3 obviously going to be on that very predictable Ashe that everyone does go for. With Stalker taking down Zest, it'll be Fusion just kind of going back to spawn, waiting it out.
So all the same notions that we had for Fusion, now just flip the mirror around and it's all on Dynasty. You have to make sure that they do get their kills, they do remain stable here and composed. You can't lose a body or else you're going to get backed up despite winning, maybe.
Oh, there's a body. Oh. M3 finds that body. Dynamite onto Prophet. Aim God traded, but Seoul Dynasty losing one and lose more now. They have to back on out. I think even if Aim God died, Prophet dies and nobody else on Seoul died, Seoul would have technically still lost that spawn hold, right? So they certainly lose a lot more. You lose one of your supports, healing kind of goes in the bin there, and Fusion very early on break out of spawn.
Big time moment here for Seoul Dynasty. They got held on, have to hold this corner down now, have to be basically flawless in your defense of this corner. There's certainly, I think, a silver lining for them. If you're going to hold any point on the map, or sorry, any map this early on, Circuit Royale actually has a very solid point A with this composition because there's great line of sight to use in this room. Smurf can fall back, but still has to be careful.
And Smurf might have to fall back. Look at his HP bar, very, very low here. I believe the shouts are a bit used. Stalker as well. In a little bit of trouble, but he'll still fight fix it despite being a low HP. That's incredible from Stalker. That actually takes the sound barrier off the board, and now they can get further kills. Look at this. Stalker's just going buck wild. And the kill feed, 5 and 0 Soul. They can rush towards the spawn now. This is exactly what Fusion did to Soul, and now Soul are doing to Fusion.
In the back of my mind, though, I'm wondering if Fusion might, in the chaos of a fight, potentially say, okay, we might be losing this fight. Go send Fixa over to the point and see if we can drag them away from this spawn hold if we're losing. But it has to get to that point first.
Fury, taken down. And got to follow through next. And yeah, like at this rate, you can't even really send somebody on through. Another way you could do, another way you can do what you're trying to say there is go Trace or a Sombra or something to go like just force a back cap. That's another way to quote unquote win against a spawn camp, but then you sacrifice all the ult charge, right? Fusion, I don't think they can afford to do that. They're gonna go to the rally now, and now the ultimates will get popped from both sides. Overclock from Fitz, looking for targets. Fixa barely dodging out that last shot. Fitz is kind of struggling to find anything at this moment, and with that Seoul Dynasty, they'll kind of gentleman's agreement back out over. Blaze will come through next. Blaze to be counted up by the sound barriers. Prophet's dead though. This is prime opportunity for Fusion to push on forward, but they're going to trade it out. Both Briggs down. Sound barrier popped by Fixer. Very on towards Fitz. M3 now popped out 3 versus 3. And Seoul Dynasty, they're going to be on the losing end of that 3 versus 3. Fusion with a brilliant opportunity to push on forward. Seoul should still get one more contest.
It's that same kind of similar situation here. Fusion as well. They're going to have Rampage, they're going to have Blade, and the only thing that they have to worry about is the sound barrier. How can Vindame have the impossible task again of trying to deal with both as their lone support ultimate? It all comes down to this right here.
M3 now, pulling it through. Smurf took so much damage. He only got Fury as well. Smurf might fall, but Vindame saves him, so the sound barrier. Oh, wait a minute. Fury gets his Rampage cancelled. I think that's the second one that we've seen today. Humongous shot by Smurf, but isn't enough. Seoul Dynasty still only have 2. Zest, the extra blade. You talked about Vindame needing to block out 2 important ultimates. He can only block out the 1, and with that Zest, despite Fury failing on the Rampage, the blade will be enough. Fusion stay alive in the series. The reverse sweep is now officially on.
Interesting dynamic at play there as well, right? Dynasty investing the sound barrier. They don't even block an ultimate with it. They instead use it to actually position themselves more aggressively. They run down Fury and basically cancel that ultimate. Exactly. They run down Fury and take him out of the equation so he can't even use his ult. But then as things wear off, Fusion still has all of those resources available, and it's just too much to contend with, I think, at that stage.
I think when you really break it down as well, in a kind of roundabout way, the sound barrier did block out the Rampage, or at least one of the 2 ultimates,
yeah,
because
right.
Smurf gets to stay alive, he walks up, kills Fury, completely denies and cancels the Rampage, so in a roundabout way, that's kind of what the sound barrier does. But then obviously, once the sound barrier is gone, Zest gets to do his job. He gets to pull Blade and pull Fusion through to a map victory that allows them to keep going in the series. Can they get the reverse sweep done? Map number 4 on your screens right after this break. The Philadelphia Fusion keep their heads above water, but now can they survive in the cold as we're about to head over to Toronto? That's right, Seoul Dynasty not going to do Coliseum. And you know what, Fusion, they don't mind going to New Queen Street. They love New Queen Street. It's one of their better maps. They have a great map win rate on this map, but it also does put the pressure on Fusion. If we are going to see a reverse sweep here, X, it is already on, but 2 more maps are required.
Yeah, I think it is definitely interesting. We kind of talked about it during the break a little bit, but now have a better opportunity to kind of expand on it. Yeah, it's really interesting here that we see this map selected, especially given Seoul's... I mean, they did well in Coliseum, especially against the Fusion. I mean, that was a map that they actually wound up taking. Then they took map number 5 and were able to take a series because of it. Yeah, I mean, it was like, what, 100 something to... Exactly, yeah.
To 62.
So you wonder, okay, what are some of the elements in play as to why Seoul would go this direction, especially also, given...
We have a lot of repeating maps here. I was going to say, sorry to cut you off there, but you know, the previous series was Oasis, won by Fusion, this time won by Seoul. Hollywood won by Seoul here. Circuit Royale won by Fusion again. But then Seoul choose Coliseum in that... Actually, did they get to choose? I can't remember. But there's a Coliseum. Whether they chose it or not doesn't matter. But they go to Coliseum, 114 versus 62. They wouldn't have chosen because it's a regular season game. But my point stands. Coliseum was the map they won quite convincingly compared to the Fusion on. But they're actually going to choose to go to New Queen Street here. So we're going to deviate from the pathway of the previous matchup.
Yeah, kind of avoiding the script a little bit here. And we've seen a little bit of that today. We've seen certainly a lot more of the following of the script where... Especially in this series here, Seoul Dynasty, they're here to stay. They're 12-0. This could very well wind up being that same situation as before, where you look at how Fusion has played throughout this entire qualifier, now moving into this tournament. They typically like to punch up. They can play spoiler. They like to take these maps off of teams as well, but sometimes, and I think inevitably, they wind up falling flat. That's why you see their 2-4 record as we're going to be moving into New Queen Street here. And I have concerns for Fusion because I think a lot of people want to see them succeed. They want to see that 2-4 record look obviously a little bit better than what it is because this team is simply, I think, better than a 2-4 record. We're seeing that here. They're playing up to Seoul Dynasty, but on New Queen Street, I think maybe a little bit of confidence gained because, like you said, this is a map that they love to play.
Yeah, they are fantastic on New Queen Street. I mean, their history on this map is, I would say, the 2 best maps are New Queen Street and Circuit Royale. That's been proven in our previous, tournament qualifiers, in those tournaments as well. So Seoul, we'll have to see what their game plan is going to be. Obviously, we have the North American NA side of the Summer Showdown tournament happening live in Toronto. That will be happening later today as well. We will go to Toronto virtually here for our Summer Showdown in the Eastern Division as the Seoul Dynasty roll out with the Sojourn. No more Fitz Ash. Now, previously, Ash wouldn't have a lot of game playtime here, but now it's like, before we talk about Seoul, just get the open 2 first bloods in very quick fashion. Fitz will respond onto 1, but at this stage, yeah, Seoul Dynasty are routed. They will probably lose everybody here if they're not too careful. It doesn't look like they will be able to get very many members away. Profit to at least boot Fury back. And yeah, it is Sojourn time. Ash gets flanked a bit too hard here is what I was about to say.
I think with those picks, though, from the Fusion, this means that they can't actually follow this payload all the way forward. Looks like they got everybody back. I think they did taxi everybody. So now they just completely nix my point. So with these taxis, they can actually push forward. Still, though, this is a map type where a lot of teams like to kind of fall back and play more neutral. Use the disengage, try to get a better position to fight from, but Zest just loves playing aggressive, so never mind.
Yeah, they found the damage on the Smurf, and now they'll find the execution on Smurf as well. That's the prime target. You want to get down. Tank is gone for the Seoul Dynasty. Supports to follow next. Stalker as well on the list. AimGod showing the kill feed. 3 kills for AimGod on the Brigader. And all allow Fusion to walk further forward. But you have to be very mindful of the fact that Fitz killing Fury makes a lot of difference here, because as Seoul Dynasty get respawners, I think Fusion have to back out.
Yeah, this is the point I was actually going to make initially, but that taxi just helped Fusion get into position. Now, maybe not as much. I think they're going to have to go ahead and disengage like you talked about. They do just that, and I think priority there for Dynasty was making sure that they did that. They pushed Fusion off before the bot actually made it to the objective, because then they get better spawns, and that certainly plays nicer into Fusion's ability to keep progressing this bot forward.
it was any other member, maybe that would have been fine. Zest actually got booed back there. I think it might have been from the flail. In either case, the kills do still come on through, not from Zest, but Fixer gets one. Now it's to Stalker's Blade to come on through, and his Blade has just been amazing so far. He already had Zest down early. Blade collects through. That's, 3 kills so far in this fight. Looking for number 4. Will probably get it. Prophet steals it. Doesn't matter. Stalker lives, and that's the most important part. Seoul Dynasty don't lose a single player in that fight, meaning that they can now push on through very aggressively without having to give up any sort of space. And they'll get their first bit of meterage now.
One of the things I love about this map too, I don't know about in the regions you cover, but in the regions I cover, this is a map that could easily turn on its head on a dime. I mean, instantly. You can see a team have like 70 meters difference, and that's able to be come back from on this map. Momentum is certainly a factor, maybe a little bit even more so than Colosseo, but Seoul Dynasty need to get through Fusion to get there.
I'll tell you what here, it's the region I cover is basically just Asia. It's APAC, it's all these kind of deep here. And it's going to be the 2 Jungle Queens falling over nice and early. M3 does find some value on that overclock, and dare I say finds a little bit more now. Double support ult is being fought by both ends. They've all but dissipated now. M3 still in the mix, 1 versus 1 against Stalker, and he wins that one so clean from M3. Fitz will get the revenge. And as the dust settles, Fusion should be coming out ahead. Okay, Fitz is just kind of popping off over there. He loses the fight. Soul loses the fight, but Fitz gets the extra points for style.
Yeah, definitely. I think we were inevitably going to say that about M3, but the fact that he did get that kill onto Stalker meant that Fusion could stabilize long enough to just neutralize the fight. I mean, completely neutralize. Nobody really got much ground at all, and it's just kind of a reset here. Fusion diving in, though.
Now is the Rampage, gets 2. I think there's a little bit of disengage from Seoul Dynasty attempted. They're trying to get away now, but they get 2 kills. I mean, on the exit entirely. I mean, Fusion trying to go on in off the Rampage, and Seoul Dynasty getting kills as they press S rather. Now they're pressing W. M3 gets 1. Prophet does have to respawn, and will have to get taxied back by Vindane, but that is otherwise a very clean fight. They just disengage from the Rampage so well.
It's also a good amount of time for them to get this taxi. You could see them working their way back over. It's all about timing here. Certainly Dynasty are going to have to back off away from this position, but if Fusion are smart, I think they're going to go fast here. Instead, they do notice that Prophet and Vinde make their way back, so buy their time just a little bit, but not for much longer.
Rampage onto 1, and that's kind of been the specialty so far for Smurf. You can only really get 1 on the Rampage. It'll be enough. It's Fury for Fitz. I think that's a better trade for the Seoul Dynasty, but they don't feel confident about it. They lost their damage. They have a tank available. Fusion trying to press the issue here. Fusion are going in. Zest pulls Blade. He wants some kills. He wants specifically Smurf down. He's low HP though. The Zest has to be so careful. Finally gets a kill onto Vinde, but wasn't Smurf. Smurf got taken down by Fixer. And now the Philadelphia Fusion, 3 versus 2. They have technically won this one, but Stalker still gets a couple of important kills, slowing things down.
I think Stalker wants to use the Blade pretty aggressively here, because, again, ult tracking should be at least a degree easier in Overwatch 2, but you can see with Stalker in this position, knowing full well that they probably are just a little bit ahead of the Fusion with those support ults, they can go and just dive right in on top of them.
Speaking of ahead, it's Fury pushing way past the statue. You can see he was out of line of sight of his supports entirely, so yeah, it does cost him 2 ultimates to do so, but it's a second member picked up now, so maybe that is worth it for the Seoul Dynasty. I think by the time Zest comes back and Fusion do regroup, they will be able to stop this payload from capping, but Seoul Dynasty spending 2 ultimates there. It was expensive.
I think with Dynasty, though, I think they're comfortable with pushing this where they can get it almost to equal territory up near that 50 mark, and now see if they can pull some more ultimates. They might lose the fight, but if they can pull resources, that's key.
Double support ultimates available for Fusion though, and Fitz is down to MN3, so this is important. Now Fusion have the lead going further forward. Vindane will find a sound barrier but chooses not to use it because everybody is dead. MN3 and Zest. MN3 in fact gets 4 in that fight. The X was stolen by Zest, but it's okay. Fusion, they get 5 alive, and that's important. They are going for the cap. MN3 is already pushed deep into Seoul territory, not towards their spawn, but very much holding tight angles here as the payload comes around. Expecting Seoul to take a quick fight here.
That they do. They're kind of diving forward, utilizing some of their cooldowns initially, but watch for those shouts. Good news here is that this is kind of neutral territory, right? 3 minutes, both the teams very close. So, I mean, all these ults are kind of right in line with one another, more or less as well. So neither team wants to make a mistake here because both of these squads are capable of exploiting these weaknesses. don't want to overextend. You don't want to utilize that shout too early and get caught out.
I think this is a very pivotal fight, as we have a 3-meter gap between the teams. Fusion are also in position that if they win this fight, they will get the checkpoint. Super point assist on 1 HP. That was very critical for them to survive that, because Fusion would have been pushed back. They would have to disengage if Zest dies. Now the shouts are being expended. Fury, though, what is that? Is that a solo kill from Smurf? Was Fury too far forward? Unknown how he dies there, but that is Seoul Dynasty prime positioning now to get a big cleanup here. I'm not expecting Fusion to burn ultimates. In fact, Dynasty themselves will also not burn ultimates, but they are going to get a number of frags. If Fusion try to throw bodies at Seoul, any sort of trade there would have slowed down Seoul, but Seoul get 5 alive. They push on through.
5 alive, that's the name of the game here, especially on New Queen Street, where there's just so much distance to cover, and a lot of it is just very open, singular lanes, right? That's the key. But Philadelphia Fusion, they're quick on the draw. They're going to be able to contest this before any progress really is made.
Oh, wait.
By the Dynasty.
Oh my god, that was very close. You cannot allow the puck to come on through if you are Philadelphia Fusion, but Sorkin, here we go. The Blades coming on through. Pretty good so far. Fury will catch 2 on the Rampage, and now Smurf to respond to the opposite end. Both DPSs have been caught, but Fixer and Inventory still getting the kills. It doesn't matter that they've been antied out. Fury's still alive. He's been saved by his own shout. He's very hard to kill, and M3 is still doing damage while all of that is happening. That was a very tight fight to get through. It looked like Smurf might have been able to turn it around, but Fusion refused to lose.
That was insane. I mean, as much as that last fight should have been the pivotal one to look at, this fight that just transpired, probably even more so. Fusion come away with that one. Also, very low on HP. None of those targets could get killed, and now it's all about picks. M3 versus Fitz. Who can win out?
Oh! Profit down to Fixer. That Fixer's been active so far. M3 even more active. Smurf trying to get away. Zest cleans him up. There was a headshot, rather. I think a headshot maybe coming through from the rail. It's enough for Zest to get the cleanup, and the cap comes on through. That is so important for the Philly Fusion. They have a brilliant checkpoint now to work through, and even more distance about to be gained. That 3-meter gap now extends to beyond 10, maybe 15 and 20 to come up as well. Seoul Dynasty could be losing this map. Now this is looking pretty poor from Seoul and Philly on the victory path. 30 or so seconds remain.
Still interesting that both these teams very similar timings in terms of their ults, so it's just going to be head-to-head for these last couple of fights. Potentially, it might even be the last one right here. 30 seconds left on the clock.
Smurf, low HP. Fitz will get the first kill, though. It's a 1-for-1 so far. Do you value MN3 or Smurf? But I'm going to say, oh, Fitz and Profit, though, that's something you can't afford to lose if you are the Seoul Dynasty, and this is where the Philly Fusion, time, not great, but they win the fight. They can continue pushing. Seoul Dynasty backs against the wall. The deficit grows further here, Rex. I mean, even if Seoul win this fight and start pushing, how can they catch up?
Yeah, going to take multiple fights back to back to back, and nobody
Yeah, well, they can't even touch.
actually there.
They can't even touch. Fusion push forward. They'll push forward towards the spawn, and the Seoul Dynasty cannot even touch. We talked about how much of a risk it was for Seoul to take Fusion to one of their best maps on New Queen Street. Coliseum was open, available to pick for Seoul Dynasty. They chose to stay away from Coliseum. They won against Philly Fusion on Coliseum by a wide margin, might I add. We remember that scoreline. And here, a little bit of hubris maybe. They get punished. Fusion, a brilliant win that continues the possibility of a reverse sweep. We went to 5 maps between these two teams in the Week 18 game. We will once again go to 5 maps, so don't you go anywhere. The final map to decide it all comes up after this break.
We're clear for takeoff.
What if Seoul Dynasty wanted to win, but MN3 the Tiger Slayer said no? New Queen Street, a brilliant map, now goes the way of the Philadelphia Fusion, chosen, by the way, by the Seoul Dynasty. And we talked about the possibility of reverse sweep here, X. Well, it is officially on the cards with 2 maps locked up by the Philly Fusion.
Yeah, now we get to that stage where Dynasty, it's their turn to take that map selection yet again here. Obviously didn't go all too well for them in that last map, but potentially now moving into a control. Obviously, they had the upper hand when we first started this series, but Philly Fusion, I feel like they've adapted pretty well right now to what's been going on. They certainly look like they have more firepower. There's more lethality there as well. And as close as Hollywood looked, it felt like, I mean, Fusion has like played up to Seoul Dynasty, but now it feels like there's maybe a little bit of some distance being gained by Fusion in this series. So Seoul Dynasty definitely have to step up and make something happen quick.
And here's the other opposite end of that coin as well, Helix, is I would have to say to temper expectations for Fusion here, because map 5s have been very 50-50 for the Fusion in the past. They've won plenty of map 5s, they've also lost plenty of map 5s. Fusion can reverse sweep, but they've also been reverse swept in the past, so, you know, it's kind of anything can go. And I want to specifically pay attention to map selection being important for a team like the Fusion, because the 2 maps they've won in this series, again, I would have to reiterate, are the 2 best maps for the Fusion. New Queen Street, Circuit Royale, have historically this entire year been their most successful 2 maps for the Fusion, so I don't think it's crazy that they did win these 2 maps. Now we go towards Oasis. As a reminder, Oasis was the map that Philly Fusion 2-0'd versus Seoul Dynasty in that Week 18 game. So they actually beat Seoul here. Seoul picked this map. Just to be clear, Seoul have chosen Oasis. They did lose Oasis to Fusion. They beat Fusion on Busan, albeit by only a 2-1 scoreline. But, this one's hard for me to call here, X. Because I feel like Philly have won here before, but it's still hard to like, grasp it, you know?
Yeah, I think I do have at least a little bit, a hint of a silver lining here. I think obviously this is fresh on Dynasty's minds. They probably looked at that very recently, watched it in film, broke it down, figured out, okay, what needed to change from there. I think obviously Philly Fusion probably did very much the same, but there's more to work off of for Dynasty because they're the ones that took the L there. Maybe they feel like what they figured out is enough for them to get out on top.
See if there's going to be a VHS diff today. As many lessons to be learned for the Seoul Dynasty. Okay. It's a risky one. It's a tricky one. Seoul been taking the Fusion to some of the good maps today. Stalker will take down him in 3 though. And this could be a continuation of frags coming on through. It indeed is. Profit onto Fixer, and that'll be the cleanup. Could be a very, very good cleanup here as well. I believe 5 kills to 0. If Zest falls, yep, there it is. 5 on the board, 0 for the Fusion.
5 alive, as you'd like to say, at least on New Queen Street. But while here, certainly it doesn't necessarily help you, position aggressively and get some bot coverage. Yeah. At least it allows you to maintain.
Shouldn't spam camp.
Yeah, definitely I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't kind of do that. I mean, that was a pitfall that Charge fell into earlier on this map specifically, not this sub-map necessarily, but definitely something I think you want to stay away from as much as you can. Certainly take your advantages, but not all the way to the spawn doors. Now, though, Seoul Dynasty talking about advantages, already up over 35%. And on top of that, looking for some picks onto Fury, who's very low. They can't press forward without him getting stabilized.
And I'm looking at the ultimate charge there as well, but maybe it doesn't matter if Mayhem could just get the opening frag with the rail of the Smurf. And Smurf has, the past couple of maps, has struggled a little bit here for the Seoul Dynasty. Seoul, though, don't give up the point. They're actually still there. It's a struggle for the Fusion to actually cap this one over. Seoul Dynasty are just very carefully juggling aggro. In the middle of juggling aggro, Fitz kills Fixer. So Fusion, they kind of win the fight by killing Smurf, and now it's a 1-for-1 trade. Neither team has a Lucio alive. Fusion did actually cap, got the flip on over. At least Seoul isn't getting more points on the cap now, but if they can heal Stalker up, the Blade's going to be available. That will open the fight.
And if I'm Dynasty as well, I'm just allowing the Lucios to come back into the fight because I need to reset. We use Shout. Gotta make sure that you have that available. You don't want to press into a fight without that cooldown available. Well, guess what? Now it is. So is the Blade for Stalker.
And Seoul just walk on up. They have just entirely walked through this point now, trying to get this cap going forward. Stalker pulls play. There's no responses. MN3 gets cut up. He's a very important member to get down early. It's a lot of the firepower gone. Zest can pull his own play, but it's a 4 versus 5. Fury going down means that Zest now has to hold, as well as Fixer and Aim God just trying to delay as long as possible. Fixer giving his life away for it. And Seoul will get the flip and do not allow Fury to overtake in percentage points.
I think delaying actually was the key for Dynasty. Start that fight off, like I said. Just having the ability to wait out that cooldown, have the Shout available, have your Lucio available as well. You don't even utilize too many resources outside of that. You just invest the Blade, you get the flip. Now you're at 75%. And you start to go 1-to-1. See if you can steal a fight away by getting an early pick, but you have to keep Smurf alive.
Okay, Zest, it's his time to go now. It's double support ultimates available for the Seoul Dynasty. They actually call Rally first. Rally now responded to by Aim God, and Zest cannot get through all the shielding. Cannot get through the HP. Sound Barrier is now in position to block out the Rampages. First one coming up through Fitz, saved by the Sound Barrier. Very important there. MN3, the overclock is looking for damage, and Smurf finally gets a beautiful Rampage. 4 members caught, and the Sound Barrier is gone. This is opportunity now. Seoul getting so much work done off the back of that Rampage, and they're going to win the fight. They're at 84%. The flip did come on through. Fusion stole the cap, but Seoul Dynasty might steal away this round.
Really good play there from Fusion. They at least afford themselves one more fight. And you look at Dynasty, well, they don't have any ults. Certainly Fusion feeling very much the same, and it may even come down with 12 seconds left now to whether or not Fusion can touch, and I think that's going to fall firmly
Tracer
on Zest's shoulders to try to get the Tracer there and make sure that they still have recall, ideally, to be able to continue this fight. And I think that they did actually manage to hold on to that cooldown.
It can be hard to hold on to that, given when you touch, you're in a lot of trouble there, so you might have to recall early. In fact, Zest will do his best now to try and get that cooldown back if it has been used. Proper save by the commanding Shout there. Seoul Dynasty, low HP on a couple of members there. Fixer runs up to Fitz and collects him down. Stalker trades on the Fury. It's a 1-for-1 so far. Stalker gets further kills here. Stalker is just doing so much work with Seoul Dynasty. Currently, 3 kills. Both the supports down. Pulls the Blade off the back of it. Hunts down MN3. Zest is the only one alive, and well, the ace might not be there, but Seoul, they'll take the win regardless.
Huge win there for Stalkers especially, but Dynasty will take it as a whole, as a collective unit, breathe a sigh of relief, because it felt like Fusion was just continuing to kind of breathe down their necks in spite of the position that Dynasty was in. And now we transition over into our next sub-map here, and Seoul Dynasty yet again with a lead, but one that I don't think that they can feel necessarily overly comfortable with, because remember, Fusion loves to do this. When they are down and it feels like they're out, they surprise you every single time, it feels like.
Can I surprise you with a stat line really quickly before we get into this round? Here, the kills or deaths between the two teams, Seoul Dynasty versus Fusion, 19-3. That's right, Fusion only got 3 final blows in an entire round. I don't know what percentage points they had on the cap, but it's a lot given they only had 3 final blows. Stalker and Prophet haven't even died yet. They're still deathless. So, and well, that continues now as Zest goes down. It's 20-3. Seoul Dynasty looking like they want to dominate here. Fury could be in trouble next, and we saw Seoul Dynasty just run into Philly Fusion on that first run at University, clean them up 5-0, and it's looking like it'll happen again. Nobody on.
Increasingly difficult now for the Philly Fusion, but not out of it just yet. Just like in this series, they fought their way back into a map number 5. They could certainly do the same for round number 3, but after a neutral fight win for Dynasty, where they're going to have an early rally, potentially if they can win this next fight. But look at Zast's position. He's worked his way around. He's flanking behind them.
He has to be careful though, because his team, if it's too far away, he's not going to be able to be supported. And despite the flanking, despite all the cuteness of that, Zest will just get the 1 kill. So at least a trade Vindane for Fixer. You take that Lucio for Lucio. Very low HP means that Fusion do have to back on out, and with that, Seoul Dynasty have a chance to get Vindane back into action. Fusion don't want to push without Fixer. We're back into a 5v5.
40% now for Dynasty Fusion. I mean, I don't want to say running out of time, but certainly time is against them, but they are now looking for Stalker.
Stalker got low there, but Prophet pulls the rally first. Fury is again very low HP. He is again going to be taken down. Here, Prophet staying alive. It's more kills coming from Seoul. When is Fusion got to get a single final blow? I think they got maybe one. No, they did get one. They got Vindane down, so they've gone from 3 to 4 here. We're improving.
It's going to have to find a lot more than that, and unfortunately for them, Stalker's going to have to blade in this next fight. They're going to probably have Rally there, but oftentimes Rally, even with a shout layered over the top of it, is simply not enough. So Fixa, burden is on you. Can you get something done and maybe even just displace Stalker to try to limit and mitigate this blade?
Okay, well, Stalker can definitely get a lot done here. It's looking pretty decent so far. Fixer gets a kill. That's a big shutdown on Stalker. That's exactly what you need from the Philly side. Fury low HP. Is there going to be a sound barrier from Fixer? Nope, doesn't need it. Zest and Fixer will get all the kills regardless of what the Seoul Dynasty want to do. Shutting down both Fitz and Stalker is so important, and even more important than that, Fusion get on the board big time. They got 5 kills there. The entire Seoul Dynasty wiped out.
Gotta be pretty much perfect here, though, from here on out, and Fusion certainly a team capable of doing just that. Obviously, they have a slight advantage in economy. The fact that MN3, one of their, I think, pivotal players, critical players, does have Overclock coming up, might fall to that to see if Fusion can sustain here.
And the Rampages have been very mixed as well from both sides. Fury probably has had the better Rampages so far. Smurf, though, got a brilliant one on New Queen Street. Well, not New Queen Street, on University. So here we go, Rampage is coming on through. 5 caught on the side of Seoul Dynasty. Vindane can do so much to keep them alive. Smurf tries to pull on through. He's trying to clutch now, but it's now a 3v5 clutch. At least they might get aim got. They do. Fixes to fall following that, but Smurf on his lonesome. You can't do more. It's a late Rampage. It looks okay, but you don't have the players alive to capitalize on killing Aim God and Fixer.
And that might have given away what could have been a gift for them. I mean, think about it. Philly Fusion, you look at their economy, it is destitute. They are barren out there. And if you talk about having a rally and a Rampage advantage going into the next fight, man, that could have been almost a gimme. Now Seoul Dynasty going to have to work a little bit hard for this.
Oh, and they can't rally now. It's going to be Prophet taken down, right? So they just have less to work through in Fusion. They can definitely win this map, and the round, rather, to continue the map on to number 3. City Center comes up next, and we're on the precipice of it. 20% away.
Rally now finally coming up for Prophet. They caught him in the last fight. Gonna have to do so again as Philly Fusion still very much building. But this looks to be, I mean, really the final fight of this round. Seoul, they're looking to end it here. They don't want to go to a round number 3.
And M3 and Zest are low. Fury being caught by a lot of damage. There's all Fury in the corner. They caught Fury in the corner. That could be the map. That could be the entire series going away. Seoul Dynasty have another frag. Fusion, no responses. They don't have a single kill here. They're invisible. M3 and Zest to hold down the fort. They're trying their best, but Smurf says no. Seoul say no. They deny the reverse sweep, and they will get the series done to face the Shanghai Dragons in the upper bracket final.
Huge win, Dynasty. Unfortunate for Fusion, especially their fans too, going on yet another wild ride, and you can see it on their faces. I would feel very much the same way. I mean, going that 5-map set again. I mean, how many times has it been this stage alone that we see them get here? And sometimes they succeed, sometimes they fall a little bit short. Here it was the latter, but Dynasty again establishing as one of the top 2 teams here. But I think Charge and Fusion both look pretty solid still.
And it's crazy that we kind of repeat the same scorelines from the qualifier as well, which is to say that Shanghai 3-0 Charge as they did in the qualifier, and then Seoul Dynasty with a lot of turmoil, barely get a 3-2 victory versus Fusion, but we sort of repeat the same scoreline again, albeit this time in a lot more dangerous fashion. I think for both teams in a way, because you're Seoul, you have a 2-0 lead. That's quite dangerous for the Fusion. But then Fusion get another 2 maps and start a reverse sweep. That's quite dangerous for the Seoul Dynasty. I think both teams have a lot to take away from this game in terms of it not being quite comfortable with your Fusion. I mean, it just is so close. You talk about a wild ride here. This is Mr. Fusion's wild ride, right? You have two maps coming in to kind of making you believe in the reverse sweep, but then on map number 5, it just falls apart.
Yeah, unfortunate for Fusion, but I think good news for Dynasty, because some of the things that are working really well for them continue to work. And one of those things is Stalker going to be the player of the match for this series. And I think rightfully so, right? Because when you look at who was making a massive difference throughout this series, time and time again, it was Stalker. It was those blades, finding the kills, again, in a meta where there's so many defensive utilities, still finding just 3Ks, 4Ks at that level of consistency. That's what separates.
And, you know, even winning in a big way on the maps they lost as well. Stalker putting up big numbers, even on Circuit, even on New Queen Street. And it's a very interesting dichotomy here between him and Zest, because you have a situation where Zest has kind of been, you know, popping off and lauded as one of the best, you know, players, just generally speaking, from APAC the entire way through. You know, a player that you have to be considerate of in the Rookie of the Year discussion. However, I think today specifically, Stalker had Zest's number. You know, there were a number of maps where Zest honestly could have done a lot more. It seemed maybe out of character that Zest was a bit quiet there. Stalker, no bad performances. All 5 maps, he stood up, he stood tall, he outperformed his counterpart in Zest, and he comes in so late in the season as well. I mean, this guy barely played in the first 2 stages. He played a lot more in Mid-Season Madness. Now he's getting a full starting role on the team in Summer Showdown, and kind of proving why he is still a player that you have to fear. He is so much of a strong force on the Seoul Dynasty roster. So many huge moments today.
Yeah, definitely come a long way. A journey himself as well, since the first time that I remember seeing him all the way back when I was casting in Korea. I think that was 2019. Stalker playing. Yeah, I mean, it's been a journey, but one that I think he's finding some success on, because obviously, you now see a team moving forward into the winners finals. Yes, you have to take on Shanghai Dragons, but at least for now, you can breathe a sigh of relief and say, look, we made it a step forward. Now let's see what we can do against what has been a pretty indomitable team, one that is very hard to surpass, but hey, maybe Seoul can pull it out.
Well, Herix, it's been good having you on the Overwatch League. Congratulations on your official debut here, especially in the Summer Showdown tournament as well, but that will do it for the day. We have closed up our first opening round of matches. Congratulations to both Seoul and Shanghai for going on through to the winners bracket final now. We'll have to come back tomorrow to see how that match goes, as well as the Guangzhou Charge versus Philadelphia Fusion game in the elimination side down the lower bracket. Somebody is going to have to go home, but that does it for the day. We'll see you tomorrow for more Summer Showdown, and also, if you're willing to stay awake, NA coming up soon as well, live in Toronto. We'll see you then.